Chapter 101. Weird Ritual. Damn! Is this the so-called soul loss phenomenon? It seems that when the lightning struck Tom just now, it also affected Ginny's soul power, causing damage to her soul power. Thinking of this, Rowling scratched the back of his head awkwardly, secretly groaning in his heart. Rowling solemnly took out the sanking bell from his space ring, and held the bell handle tightly with his right hand, and began to shake it non-stop. At the same time, his vigorous steps shuttled back and forth beside Ginny like a ghost, dazzling the eyes. At this moment, Llewellyn concentrated his mind and continuously injected the soul power of the intermediate soul core he had just obtained into the sanking bell. Accompanied by the crisp and pleasant ding-ding-ding sound that came one after another, the whole secret room was filled with this mysterious sound. Sometimes these sounds seem chaotic, like a group of out-of-control notes flying wildly in the air, sometimes they seem well-organized, like a well-trained band playing beautiful music. Harry, who was standing by, was already dumbfounded, completely stunned by the bizarre scene before his eyes. If he hadn't had complete trust in Rowling, he would have been scared to death. The clear ringing sounds are like sharp swords, piercing straight into the depths of the human soul, making people feel creepy. At this moment, Rowling was muttering something, his speech speed was getting faster and faster, and the power of the spell was getting stronger and stronger. Under the influence of this magical power, Ginny's originally restless soul gradually calmed down, and the soul power injected into it continued to nourish her vitality that was extremely scarce due to excessive consumption like a trickle. Gradually, Ginny's face, which was as pale as paper, began to show a trace of blood color, slowly regaining its former rosy luster. Then, her tightly closed eyes slowly opened. Seeing this, Llewellyn knew that he had achieved remarkable results, so he stopped what he was doing and gently put away the sanking bell that was emitting a mysterious light. "Harry, Rowling, thank you for saving me!" Ginny cried with a face full of grievance. Her bright eyes were now filled with fear and helplessness, which made people feel pity. "You're welcome, Ginny." Luckily Rowling arrived in time, otherwise the consequences would be disastrous. "But what happened? How did you get taken to that terrible chamber of secrets?" Harry frowned and asked in confusion. He really couldn't figure out why Ginny was in such danger. Ginny took a deep breath, trying to calm her fear, and slowly said, "When I was packing my luggage that day, I accidentally found this diary. Out of curiosity, I started to record my daily life on it. Unexpectedly, this seemingly ordinary diary would actively respond to me and answer all the confusions in my heart. At first, I thought it was interesting, but gradually, I felt a mysterious force influencing me. There was always a strange voice echoing in my heart, driving me to do things that I couldn't even understand." At this point, Ginny's body trembled uncontrollably, as if those horrific experiences were still vivid in her mind. After hearing Ginny's description, Rowling fell into deep thought. He thought to himself, "Uncontrollable? And that strange sound? Could this be the special effect of this Horcrux, to bewitch people? It looks like some kind of strong desire is at work. And as far as I know, Ginny seems to have written a lot about her admiration for Harry in her diary. Maybe it was this emotion that was exploited that led to her being bewitched. Could it be that this was the part of Voldemort's remaining soul with desires?" Rowling's mind was full of thoughts. At this moment, Fawkes came rushing down from the sky like a flash of lightning. Its loud and high-pitched cry resounded throughout the space, as if it was about to break through the clouds. Rowling suddenly came back to his senses and said to Harry with a serious expression, "Harry, I think we must leave this place quickly." Before his voice fell, Fawkes had already acted quickly. It grabbed Harry and Ginny tightly with its two claws, then flew away without hesitation and without looking back. Looking at this scene, Llewellyn couldn't help but feel helpless and speechless. He shook his head, bent down and put the huge snake monster corpse on the ground into his space ring. After doing all this, Llewellyn took a deep breath and summoned the flying cards. Then, he jumped into the air and followed the direction where Fawkes left like a shooting star. At this moment, Llewellyn had the opportunity to really observe the surrounding environment carefully. It turned out that when they walked out of the secret room, what came into view was an endless and amazing stalactite forest. These stalactites are like mountain peaks, scattered around in an orderly manner, giving people a strong visual impact. On both sides, there are rows of lifelike and huge snake statues. They are winding and have different postures, exuding an unparalleled majesty and oppression that makes people feel awe. Not long after, Rowling and the others successfully returned to the bathroom. However, just as they sat down to rest, Ron hurried over. Then, Professor McGonagall and Professor Snape followed closely behind, their faces full of anxiety. "That's great, Ginny, you're still alive. It's a miracle," Ron said with his eyes wide open and his face full of joy, his voice trembling slightly with excitement. "Harry, Rowling, thank you so much. If you hadn't arrived in time and faced the danger bravely, the consequences would have been disastrous." Snape stood quietly by the side, and when he confirmed that Harry was safe, his slightly worried expression gradually relaxed. However, he soon returned to his usual cold and slightly sarcastic tone. "Mr. Potter, I have to say that you are truly brave and fearless. Even though you are just a second-grade wizard, you have the courage to challenge that terrifying basilisk." Rowling, who was watching silently nearby, was suddenly locked in Snape's gaze, and his heart tightened. Snape stared at him with sharp eyes and continued to rebuke him mercilessly. "And you, who gave you such courage? How dare you act on your own without telling the professors? Aren't you afraid of bringing irreparable disaster to others?" Rowling knew he was in the wrong and lowered his head obediently. However, he knew in his heart that although Professor Snape was severely blaming him at the moment, it was actually out of concern and consideration for the safety of the students. "Your behavior this time was really too reckless and rash. Fortunately, Merlin favored you and allowed you to escape. However, please remember that you must never act so impulsively in the future. I think this matter should be handed over to Headmaster Dumbledore to decide how to deal with it." Chapter 102, Deception After Deception. Professor McGonagall took a long breath and said with a serious expression that she was fully aware of the seriousness of this incident and that appropriate measures must be taken to ensure that similar situations would not occur again. "Principal Dumbledore? Professor McGonagall, did you just say that Principal Dumbledore, he is back?" Harry widened his eyes and looked at Professor McGonagall in disbelief, his voice trembling slightly because of excessive excitement. "Oh! That's right, child. I think that's right. Ever since Miss Ginny Weasley was unfortunately kidnapped, the school board has considered it carefully. They all agree that Hogwarts absolutely cannot be without someone with powerful magic like Headmaster Dumbledore." Professor McGonagall's face was filled with joy, and she explained to Harry in a brisk tone. Then she added, "As far as I know, if nothing unexpected happens, Headmaster Dumbledore will be able to return to Hogwarts smoothly tonight." At this time, a tense atmosphere filled the spacious and bright headmaster's office. Rowling, Harry and Ron stood in front of Headmaster Dumbledore. Harry and Ron seemed a little at a loss, lowering their heads and not daring to look directly into Dumbledore's sharp eyes. But Rowling seemed to be full of curiosity about everything around him, and his bright eyes kept looking around this mysterious office. Headmaster Dumbledore looked serious and said slowly, "In the past few hours, you three have violated dozens of school rules. Such a serious violation of the rules can be expelled from the school directly." At this point, Dumbledore paused, with a hint of majesty in his eyes. Hearing this, Ron and Harry were as pale as eggplants hit by frost. They drooped their heads and whispered, "Yes, Headmaster. We know we were wrong. However, what is unexpected is that everything you have done is enough for you to win the Hogwarts Special Contribution Award." Dumbledore's originally serious face was instantly replaced by a gratified smile, and he said in a firm tone, "Is this true? Great, thank you very much, Headmaster." Ron and Harry responded excitedly almost in unison. At the same time, Rowling on the side could not hide his excitement, but unlike them, he was thinking rapidly in his mind. "Wow! This time I can really gain both fame and fortune. With the celebrity effect, I will definitely earn more gold galleons than before, he he he. Well, Mr. Weasley, it's time to get our gamekeeper Hagrid back to work." Dumbledore took out a letter from his pocket and cleverly sent Ron away. So, only Harry and Rowling were left in the room. "First of all, I must express my sincere gratitude to you, Rowling. Thank you for risking your life to save Harry and Ginny. However, I don't seem to see the Sword of Gryffindor. I wonder if you can tell me where it is? Moreover, I recently heard a piece of news in Diagon Alley, the descendant of the legendary Godric Gryffindor appeared in the world. So, Rowling, in your opinion, who is this mysterious person?" Dumbledore's deep eyes stared at Rowling, as if he wanted to see through all the secrets through his eyes. At this moment, a gleam of light flashed in Rowling's eyes, and a thought flashed through his mind. The next moment, the sword of Gryffindor, shining with mysterious light, instantly appeared in his hand. He gripped the hilt tightly, feeling the powerful force coming from the sword, and then said to Dumbledore in front of him in a firm and steady tone, "As you expected, this is just returning something that belongs to its rightful owner." Rowling's voice was not loud, but it was full of confidence and calmness, without the slightest humility or cowardice. Hearing this, Dumbledore nodded slightly in agreement, of course. His wise eyes revealed his recognition and appreciation for Rowling. Harry Potter, standing by, looked at Rowling in amazement, as if he had discovered a shocking secret. He widened his eyes and muttered to himself in disbelief, "Rowling, you are actually a descendant of Gryffindor. No wonder you have always been so powerful." His words were full of admiration. Facing Harry's exclamation, Rowling seemed very calm. He even smiled a little proudly and said, "Haha, maybe it's because I was born with extraordinary wisdom." There was no shyness on his face, and he seemed to have full confidence in his talents. However, Dumbledore's expression became serious at this time. He stared at Rowling and said slowly, "Rowling, since you have successfully destroyed Voldemort's Horcrux, it is time to tell you something important." After that, he turned his gaze to Harry next to him. "Harry, from your expression, I can tell that you seem to be deeply troubled by something. Why don't you tell me, what happened?" Although Dumbledore's tone was gentle, it contained an irresistible majesty. Harry hesitated for a moment, but finally mustered up the courage to answer, "Yes, Professor. In recent times, I have gradually realized that Tom Riddle and I have some similarities in certain aspects." When he said this, Harry's voice was light, and it was obvious that he felt very uneasy about it. "That's right, you are the Parseltongue Harry who can communicate with snakes. The reason for this is that Voldemort himself is also a Parseltongue. If my guess is correct, when he left that hideous scar on your forehead, he also transferred part of his power to you." Dumbledore said with a firm look, as if he was confident in every word he said. "Voldemort actually transferred some of his power to me." Harry Potter's face was full of astonishment, and his voice was filled with suspicion and confusion that was difficult to conceal. It seemed that he was completely unable to accept this shocking fact. Although this was not his intention, it is true. "Child, you must know that you do possess some qualities that Voldemort would be proud of." Dumbledore responded in a serious tone. "So the Sorting Hat is going to put me into the evil Slytherin? I'm more suitable for Slytherin, right?" Harry asked. "No, Harry. It's not Slytherin House that is evil, but it lies in everyone's heart. Although you have some of Tom's power, the right to choose still lies with you. Only a true Gryffindor can draw the sword of Gryffindor," Dumbledore said seriously. Rowling just watched Dumbledore talking nonsense in a serious manner, thinking to himself, "Are you sure the sword of Gryffindor didn't fall out by itself?" At this moment, the door of the principal's office, which was originally closed, was suddenly kicked open with a loud thumping sound. Chapter 103. How to Face Death. Then, Lucius Malfoy strode in with a haughty look on his face, followed closely by the trembling, cautious house elf Dobby. Llewellyn, who had been watching from the sidelines, couldn't help but reveal a look of interest when he saw this scene, and he watched the development of the situation quietly. Lucius immediately saw Rowling in the room. He just nodded slightly to show his greeting, with an arrogant expression on his face. Rowling also nodded politely in return. "Dobby, it turns out that this gentleman is your master, and the family you serve is the Malfoy family." Harry Potter looked at the scene in front of him, his heart full of surprise, and couldn't help blurting out. At that moment, Lucius suddenly realized that Dobby always acted according to his own sense of right and wrong when carrying out his orders. There is no doubt that this house elf must have revealed some important information to Harry Potter. Thinking of this, Lucius's face became extremely gloomy. He gritted his teeth and whispered, "Just wait and see, I'll come and deal with you later." After that, he walked towards Dumbledore with a menacing look. "Humph, good, you're back after all." Lucius's voice sounded cold and slightly sarcastic, as if he was squeezing these words out from between his teeth. His eyes were full of questioning and dissatisfaction. Facing Lucius's attitude, Dumbledore seemed unusually calm. His wise and deep eyes narrowed slightly, with a faint smile on the corners of his mouth, and he responded in a leisurely and neither humble nor arrogant tone. "Yes, when the innocent and lovely Ginny Weasley was unfortunately kidnapped, they thought carefully and believed that they should invite me back to the school so that they could jointly deal with the current serious situation. Hearing this, Lucius's anger erupted like a volcano, and his originally gloomy face became even more distorted and hideous. He slammed the table, pointed at Dumbledore and shouted, "This is simply ridiculous. This is really interesting. According to some board members, if they disagree with you and don't suspend me, you will threaten to curse their entire family." Dumbledore seemed quite interested in this and asked Lucius with his sharp eyes. Hearing this, Lucius was shocked, but he quickly calmed down and tried to suppress his anger, and responded, "Nonsense. For me, the only thing that never changes is the overall interests of the school, and of course, the safety of the students' lives. I want to know whether the hateful murderer has been caught or not." Although he said this, his eyes flickered unconsciously, as if he was hiding something. "Yes, it is Voldemort. However, this time is different from the past. He not only uses other people to carry out these evil deeds, but also achieves his goal through this mysterious diary. Who on earth is so bold as to send this extremely dangerous diary into the campus?" Dumbledore asked in a low voice with a serious expression. Hearing the name Voldemort, Lucius couldn't help but be shocked, with a little panic on his face. Volume Vol. He stared at the diary he had secretly sent in. He knew that Voldemort had deceived him back then. This was not only the key to open the Chamber of Secrets, but also Voldemort's Horcrux. It is indeed Voldemort. Fortunately, the brave and intelligent Harry Potter noticed and exposed the matter in time. "I hope that from now on, no one will hand over the items left behind by Voldemort to those unsuspecting innocent people. And those who make such mistakes will pay a heavy price for it." Dumbledore's expression was solemn, and his words were full of majesty. "Well, let's wait and see." Lucius said this hastily, and turned around to leave. Before leaving, he kicked Dobby fiercely. Harry was filled with indignation when he saw this scene. He stared at Lucius's back with wide eyes. Then he turned to look at Dumbledore and asked firmly, "Headmaster, can you give me this diary?" After getting Dumbledore's approval, Harry held the diary tightly as if he had found a treasure, ran away, and disappeared without a trace in the blink of an eye, leaving only Rowling and Dumbledore behind. "Mr. Rowling, with your intelligence you must have discovered the special connection between Harry and Voldemort." Dumbledore's deep and bright eyes flashed with an imperceptible cunning light, and he stared at Rowling in front of him. Facing this wise and insightful old man, Rowling knew that any concealment would be futile. Moreover, at this moment, his goal was to eradicate the evil force of Voldemort. So, he responded calmly, "Well, I know a little bit." Then, Dumbledore's expression became more solemn and serious, and he asked solemnly, "So what do you think about this whole thing?" After a brief silence, Llewellyn replied in a firm tone, "As long as it is within my ability, I will lend a helping hand without hesitation." Although his voice was not loud, the determination contained in it was unquestionable. Hearing this, Dumbledore showed a look of relief on his face, and continued, "Before, I wrote a letter to a close friend of mine, asking him for advice on the various difficulties that the wizarding world will soon face. That friend has an innate magical ability to predict the future. In his reply, I specifically mentioned you. I hope you don't mind. He said that although he couldn't see the direction of your life, he could clearly feel that you were shouldering an extremely difficult and glorious mission. And he firmly believes that if you are willing to help Harry fight Voldemort, countless lives will be saved. I am really happy to hear your answer today." When Dumbledore recounted this past event, it was as easy and natural as talking about trivial matters in daily life. Rowling stood there quietly, motionless like a sculpture. In the past 2 years, Dumbledore, whom he had seen, always told every story and event in a leisurely manner. However, at this moment, when he stared at Dumbledore's face, he unexpectedly caught a glimpse of happiness. This feeling was so subtle and real that Rowling couldn't help but speculate secretly, it must be related to Grindelwald. "That's right, Headmaster, my mission is to eradicate Voldemort, and you don't need to have any doubts about it." When Rowling was listening attentively, it seemed as if some mysterious force was trying to invade his thinking. With his keen intuition, he immediately realized that it was probably Dumbledore using legilimency to test him. Fortunately, Rowling is no longer the same as he was before. He possesses an extraordinary physique. As soon as Dumbledore's thoughts touched Rowling, it was like hitting an indestructible wall and was instantly bounced back. "In that case, I'll take my leave now." Llewellyn stood up and said in a firm tone. Of course. Dumbledore remained calm and watched Rowling's figure walking away silently. Rowling was about to leave when he suddenly said, "Mr. Principal, since you have already seen through that Harry is Voldemort's Horcrux, what method should be used to make Harry brave enough to face death?" Chapter 104. Invitation. This question was like a sharp sword, piercing the tranquility in the air and plunging the entire room into a solemn silence. However, after waiting for a long time, there was still dead silence all around, without any movement. Rowling thought to himself that he already knew whether Dumbledore could be relied on. If the situation required it, he might become the one to be betrayed. Thinking of this, Rowling pushed open the door without hesitation and walked out. At this moment, a picture appeared in front of him. Dobby launched a sudden attack and knocked Lucius to the ground. Then, Lucius fell to the ground with a look of resentment on his face, and left without looking back. It is true. No matter what, the wheel of fate always moves along the predetermined track. Now, Dobby finally got the freedom he had always dreamed of and became the only free house elf in the world. But at the same time, the road ahead of him was destined to be bumpy and difficult. Because from now on, it will face the ruthless exclusion and neglect from all other house elves. It ran around looking for a job, eager to find a paid job, but no one paid any attention to it. Rowling watched all this silently, and did not choose to show up on the spot, but turned around quietly and went straight back to his dormitory. After returning to the room, Rowling fell into deep thought. He once considered whether to take this opportunity to take away Ravenclaw's crown and destroy it completely. After careful consideration, Rowling finally decided to give up this idea. Because he knows that the Ravenclaw diadem is of vital importance to the development of the whole story. It is because of its existence that Harry Potter was able to save Draco's life at the critical moment, which in turn triggered a series of subsequent redemption journeys. Therefore, the best thing to do at this moment is to stay put, quietly observe the changes in the situation, and then wait for an opportunity to act. At this moment, all the boys in the Weasley family learned that their precious little sister had almost met with an accident. They were anxious and ran to Rowling's dormitory at the same time. "I really don't know how to express my deep gratitude to you, Rowling. You know, she is my only sister. Compared to the naughty George, Fred, and little Ronnie, Ginny is so well behaved. I have informed my parents on the internet, and they have learned about everything that happened. So they specifically asked me to cordially invite you to visit the Burrow again. This is to show the most sincere and warm welcome of our Weasley family," Percy said earnestly. At this moment, George, who was standing nearby, could no longer suppress his inner joy and couldn't wait to interrupt and say, "Hey, Rowling, I have some super good news to share with you. You would never have thought, would you? Our dad unexpectedly won the Daily Prophet's Galleon Award. This is such a pleasant surprise. Now, Dad is carefully planning a happy trip for the whole family. The destination is the mysterious and charming Egypt. According to Bill, there are countless extremely ferocious and powerful fire dragons in that place. Imagine those majestic creatures, don't you feel your heart beating faster? If you don't mind going with us, we are really looking forward to inviting you to enjoy this rare journey together." At this point, George was so excited that he couldn't help waving his hands, as if he was already in that magical land. "Yes, Rowling, George and I have sent letters to Bill before. You know? Their communication methods are still quite old-fashioned and backward. Not as advanced and convenient as ours. Although our internet can only cover the British wizarding world at present, I think we can take this opportunity to expand it to the Egyptian wizarding world. Maybe I can take this opportunity to earn more galleons. In addition, I heard that there is a magical flying blanket in Egypt. Wow, it's so cool just to think about it. We can buy a batch and sell it in the UK." Fred immediately agreed, and enthusiastically described his beautiful vision for the future. "You are all my close friends, and Ginny is like my own sister. Therefore, Percy, you don't have to thank me at all. I am very grateful for your kind invitation. I am also very interested in the mysterious Egyptian magic. It would be great if we could explore it together. Admittedly, our local coverage is currently limited by the Crystal Core. If we want to achieve smooth communication with Egypt, we must set up a similar core in Egypt." Llewellyn responded one by one in an orderly manner. "Great!" Fred and George couldn't hide their excitement and couldn't help cheering loudly. "In that case, I will tell my parents about this right away. To be honest, Llewellyn, the internet you created is truly a great invention with epoch-making significance. With it, I can keep in close contact with my parents anytime and anywhere. Oh, by the way, I have an exclusive insider information here. According to what my father learned from the Ministry of Magic, they seem to intend to award you a third-class Merlin Medal to recognize the Internet's outstanding contribution to the entire wizarding world. Percy's face was full of excitement, and he couldn't wait to share this good news with everyone. Oh my God! Dad didn't even tell us about this. It's too much. If all this is true, then Rowling, you will become the youngest recipient of the Order of Merlin in the entire wizarding world. Moreover, the Ministry of Magic has already started purchasing some crystal balls from us for use in their daily work. We were just about to tell you about this. George narrated excitedly. This is indeed unexpected. If that's the case, then in my opinion, we can consider opening a store of our own in Diagon Alley. How about calling it Rowling Magic Crystal Store? Ha 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 ha. Rowling responded excitedly. Yeah, that's right, it is indeed very necessary. George and Fred said in unison. Chapter 105. Oh, by the way, Rowling. I heard from Bill that there is a rather mysterious creature in Egypt, called the Sphinx. This beast has extraordinary wisdom, and we may meet it someday. George said. Hearing this, Llewellyn said, Sphinx? Could it be that strange creature with a body like a lion, a face like a human, and a pair of huge wings? I almost forgot that I have a super exciting video here. This is a true record of Harry's fierce battle with the basilisk. In my opinion, this video is enough to completely clear all suspicions on Harry, said Rowling. At the same time, he quickly uploaded the video to the internet. However, Rowling was not stupid enough to publish the clips of Voldemort's appearance and the footage of himself taking action. You know, in the current situation, it is quite necessary to keep a few trump cards for yourself. Before long, members of the Weasley family received the news one after another and logged on to the internet to watch this thrilling battle scene with great interest. They couldn't help but marvel at it while watching, and kept saying, "Wow, this is so brave." As time went by, more and more people flocked to this video page, everyone enthusiastically participated in the discussion, and various opinions and speculations emerged like a tide. Instantly, this video spread like wildfire, setting off an unprecedented wave of enthusiasm on the internet. It quickly occupied all major hot lists. Harry Potter the Savior fights the basilisk. Shocking discovery. Harry Potter is not the heir of Slytherin. There were a lot of headlines like this, attracting the attention of countless people. At this time, Draco, who had always been at odds with Harry, also took the opportunity to jump out and made a serious statement. How could a second-grade wizard kill such a huge basilisk? This is absolutely impossible, it must be fake. This sentence was like a bombshell. Especially those wizards in Slytherin College who think highly of themselves and always look down on students from other colleges, became excited as if they had been injected with chicken blood. They praised Draco Malfoy's views and expressed their firm support. On the other hand, Harry Potter also noticed the thrilling video uploaded by Rowling. When he saw himself fighting a basilisk in the video, Rowling was not there. An indescribable feeling of emotion welled up in his heart. So Harry sent Rowling a short but affectionate message, "Thank you, Rowling." At this moment, Ron, who was standing next to Harry, suddenly broke the silence. He stared at the creepy basilisk on the screen with his eyes wide open, swallowed his saliva involuntarily, and stammered, This is too scary. But then again, this basilisk looks like it's worth a lot of money. Harry, did you get any precious materials from it?" Ron's greedy eyes looked straight at Harry, as if he had seen a pile of glittering gold galleons in front of him. Facing Ron's expectant eyes, Harry shook his head helplessly and replied with a wry smile, "No, Ginny had just been rescued when Fawkes took us out of the Chamber of Secrets. There was no time to collect anything from the basilisk. But Rowling might collect some." Hearing this answer, Ron's face suddenly showed disappointment, but he quickly returned to normal. He patted Harry on the shoulder and comforted him, "Well, after all, you will be blessed after surviving a disaster this time. Maybe there will be better opportunities waiting for us in the future." After that, the two smiled at each other. As the mysterious chamber closed, the entire Hogwarts castle fell into silence. However, this tranquility was soon broken, because the annual House Cup competition was about to begin. At this time, 4 long tables were neatly arranged in the auditorium, filled with young wizards from 4 houses. They were dressed in their respective college robes, their faces filled with excitement and anticipation. Unlike before, the hall was no longer filled with the creepy fear and oppressive atmosphere brought by the appearance of the basilisk. Instead, there was a noisy sound filled with joy. The young wizards talked happily and laughed one after another, as if they were going to wake up the ancient castle. What was unique this year was that almost every young wizard held a crystal ball in his hand. This novel thing aroused great interest among everyone, including the professors. Even Professor Snape, who was known for his strictness, noticed the crystal balls. His deep eyes swept across the crowd and finally landed on Harry Potter. Not long ago, he had just watched a video of Harry killing a basilisk. Although Snape's expression remained as serious as usual, deep in his eyes, there was a hint of relief that was difficult to conceal. Professor Snape has always been extremely cold towards Harry Potter, and his words are full of sarcasm and ridicule. The reason for this is not only because of Harry's occasional impulsiveness, recklessness, and stupidity. The more crucial factor is that every time Snape saw Harry, he would involuntarily think of James Potter, whom he once hated. However, after witnessing Harry fearlessly facing the terrifying basilisk and finally killing it, Snape's heart quietly changed. He gradually noticed some of Lily's characteristics and traces. But at the same time, Snape is also well aware of a cruel reality. Although he has gotten rid of the dark mark that symbolizes the dark forces, Voldemort is still alive in the world, and there is never a shortage of children who are loyal to the Death Eaters in the Magic Academy. If he paid too much attention to this man who was regarded as the savior of future hope and Voldemort's destined enemy, it would undoubtedly bring Harry endless troubles and dangers. Lorraine, I heard that you are going to travel to Egypt with us. That's great, it's such a great surprise. I bet this trip will be super fun and enjoyable. Alas, the only drawback is that Harry can't come with us, what a pity. Ron shouted with a happy face, his words were mixed with traces of regret that were difficult to conceal. Harry, who was standing aside and listening quietly, couldn't help but sigh. Chapter 106. Hogwarts Special Contribution Award. That's right, Ron, it's a pity that Harry can't go with you. Of course, I am very interested in the magic in Egypt. And it's a good opportunity to develop the internet market. Rowling responded with a smile. Well, although Harry can't come, we can shoot some more wonderful videos and post them on the internet. In this way, even if he is not there, he can still feel the unique charm of Egypt as if he were there in person. Ron suddenly had an idea and enthusiastically put forward his idea. Hey, that's a great idea, little Ronnie. Hearing this, George Weasley instantly became extremely excited and shouted, let's record all the thrilling adventures on the journey and share them all with Harry. At this moment, the door of the auditorium, which had been closed, suddenly opened without warning, and Hermione Granger and other little wizards who had suffered from the petrification curse returned from the hospital and walked into the auditorium. The sharp-eyed Harry and Ron immediately discovered that Hermione had recovered. Without saying a word, they immediately ran over with joy and hugged their friend whom they hadn't seen for a long time. The dinner was held smoothly, and Dumbledore also announced an important news. Hogwarts will give Rowling, Harry, and Ron the Hogwarts Special Contribution Award. For their courage to save the people implicated and defeat the basilisk. The little wizards in the hall applauded, and of course Draco only applauded for Rowling. Amidst warm applause, Rowling, Harry and Ron walked up to the podium and accepted the Hogwarts Special Contribution Award. They felt extremely proud, as this honor belonged not only to them personally, but also to the entire Gryffindor College. Time flies, and the second year of Hogwarts has come to an end. In Hogwarts, those young wizards full of vigor and vitality, with homesickness in their hearts, have embarked on the journey home. Some of them are in groups of 2 or 3, laughing and talking happily, some are alone, thinking about something, but without exception, they have boarded the train on their way home with full gains and growth. However, Rowling did not go back directly like other students. He chose to go to the burrow with the Weasley family. Here, Rowling first met the owner of the burrow, Mr. Arthur Weasley. When they first met, Arthur extended his hand to Rowling enthusiastically and said with gratitude, "Dear Rowling, I'm so glad to meet you. I'm Arthur Weasley, thank you very much for saving my baby daughter Ginny. If it weren't for you, the consequences would be disastrous." Facing Arthur's sincere thanks, Rowling smiled and responded modestly, "You are too kind, Mr. Weasley. In fact, I just did what I should do. Moreover, I have a special and deep friendship with your children. Not only that, I also became a business partner with George and Fred. So, I naturally care about their sister Ginny. Then, Rowling said slowly. Oh, yes, George and Fred sent 2 crystal balls back home. I have to say, this is really an amazing invention. It brings a lot of surprises and convenience to everyone. At this moment Arthur Weasley took out a letter and said, I almost forgot, this very important letter is from the Ministry of Magic, and it's specially sent to you, Rowling. When I was working at the Ministry of Magic, I heard that they are about to award you the 3rd class Order of Merlin. As soon as I heard the news that you were coming, I couldn't wait to accept this letter. Open it and take a look. Arthur Weasley couldn't hide his excitement. Llewellyn reached out his hand and took the mysterious envelope. He gently tore open the seal of the envelope and pulled out the letter inside. On the letter was written a line of words in a flamboyant style. Dear Mr. Rowling, we are honored to convey this exciting news to you. With your extraordinary wisdom and courage, you have successfully developed an epoch-making internet system. This great initiative will undoubtedly bring about earth-shaking and unprecedented changes to the entire wizarding world. For this reason, the Ministry of Magic has decided to give you a high commendation for your outstanding contribution and specially award you the 3rd class Merlin Medal. We hope you can get in touch with the Ministry of Magic as soon as possible to discuss and confirm the specific date of issuance. The official crystal ball number of the Ministry of Magic is 9527, and you can contact it directly via the internet. Minister of Magic Cornelius Fudge. Llewellyn took a deep breath and slowly read out the words above, as if every word brought him glory and joy. At this moment, his originally anxious heart finally settled down, replaced by a full feeling of surprise. Great, Rowling! You have become the youngest recipient of the Order of Merlin in history. George Fred couldn't contain his excitement and cheered loudly. His passionate voice echoed in the air, making everyone around him feel the infectious joy. Faced with such warm congratulations, Rowling showed a humble and warm smile on his face, and responded softly, Thank you, this is inseparable from your continued support and encouragement. At the same time, he quickly wrote a letter to the Ministry of Magic online, saying that he was very honored to receive this honor, and informed the other party that because he was about to embark on a trip to Egypt, he hoped to arrange the awarding ceremony in August. Then, the Weasley family and Rowling embarked on a journey to Egypt. This time, they planned to stay in that mysterious and ancient country for a whole month to explore the wonders there. However, since the Flu Network could not teleport directly from Britain to Egypt, they had to first reach their destination through the Muggle world and then enter the magical realm of Egypt. After some discussion, under Rowling's strong recommendation, they finally decided to take a Muggle plane. This new experience is undoubtedly a unique adventure for them who are used to using magic. As the plane gradually took off, the scenery outside the window kept changing. Wow! Llewellyn, this is incredible! These Muggles can fly freely in the sky without any magic. This magical alchemical tool is really amazing. Rowling could hear the surprised shouts of George, Fred, and Ron from time to time. Compared to the calm and reserved Percy and the quiet and well-behaved Ginny, the 3 of them seemed too noisy. At this moment, Rowling sat quietly on one side, occasionally echoing the Weasley family members' words of surprise, but more often he cast his gaze at the picturesque scenery outside the window. After a long flight lasting several hours, a magnificent and vast picture suddenly entered Llewellyn's eyes, a vast expanse of land, a golden color spread out, with only a few dots of green dotted in between. Chapter 107. Arrival. A magnificent, surging river runs through the north and south ends of the earth like a winding dragon. Even in the sky, one can still feel the scorching heat and dry air outside. Llewellyn thought to himself, this must be the final stop of our trip. This majestic river in front of us must be the famous Nile River. It is indeed a veritable desert country. Finally, the plane slowly landed in Cairo, the largest city in Egypt. This is the only way to the magical world of Egypt. After the plane landed smoothly, the cabin door slowly opened, and a stream of hot air rushed towards Llewellyn and others like a turbulent wave. They followed the pace of other passengers and left the airport hall in a line. As soon as they stepped out of the gate, they saw a strangely decorated carriage parked not far ahead, which was very old-fashioned and quietly waiting for their arrival. The elegant Bill Weasley stood beside the carriage with a smile on his face and an upright posture, welcoming their arrival. When Bill saw Roland, he immediately smiled enthusiastically and took the initiative to greet him. Roland was no less enthusiastic and responded with the same enthusiasm. At this moment, Bill was wearing a traditional Egyptian costume. The unique style and exquisite patterns exuded a strong exotic style, which was eye-catching. He raised his hand gracefully and led Roland and his family to board the carriage. Stepping into the carriage, Roland could not help but marvel at its spaciousness. Apparently, a magical traceless stretching spell had been cast here, making the originally limited space become extremely spacious. Not only that, the interior of the carriage was also extremely comfortable and pleasant, with soft cushions neatly arranged and several bottles of iced drinks placed on the side, bringing a touch of cool comfort. Llewellyn and his party sat down one after another, and with the slight bumps of the carriage, they officially embarked on this wonderful journey to the mysterious Egyptian magic world. Along the way, they shuttled through the bustling city, and from afar, they could see the towering pyramids and magnificent temples. The streets were crowded with people, noisy, and all kinds of sounds and strange smells blended together. But Llewellyn felt that this place could really be described as a waste of money. There were sparse palm trees, and the city was all monotonous colors. There were no red bricks or green tiles, all uniform mud brick buildings. In a desert country, even a little green seemed very luxurious. Night slowly fell, and the lights in the city lit up one by one. With the slight sound of wheels rolling, the carriage rushed forward. The carriage gradually drove out of the city, and what came into view was really a desolate place. Except for the occasional camel passing by, there were basically no other creatures. "Bill, where are we going?" Roland finally couldn't hold back his curiosity and asked. Bill turned around, a smile on his face, and replied softly, "Llewellyn, this is your first time to set foot in this ancient land, Egypt. I guess you are not familiar with the Ministry of Magic here, right? Although this country has a long history, it is a pity that its inheritance seems to have been intermittent over the years. Now, only the majestic pyramids remain. And the Ministry of Magic of this country is built on these pyramids." Then, Bill paused for a moment and continued, "This is not only the resting place of the pharaohs of all generations, but also the place where countless treasures are gathered. As for me, I am a curse breaker sent here by Gringotts. My mission is to untie the various curses hidden deep inside the pyramid and explore the precious treasures hidden within. Of course, there are many wizards doing the same job as me here. But it should be noted that there are always dark wizards with ulterior motives here. So we are going to the Wizard Hotel built by the Ministry of Magic here. Legend has it that although the pharaohs here had no magic power and were muggles, they had close contacts with powerful wizards in ancient times, and relied on this relationship to rule the vast land of Egypt for a long time. Those places called temples by the world are actually places used to worship powerful wizards. It is precisely because of the pharaohs' devout worship of wizards that the wizards have acquired extraordinary power. Unfortunately, over the long course of history, those wizards with mysterious powers gradually lost the respect and worship of muggles in one brutal war after another, and eventually went on the road to destruction. But the amazing thing is that it is said that these dead pharaohs will be resurrected. Obviously, there is some kind of magical magic hidden here that is considered taboo. The energy generated by offerings? Could this be the power of faith? You know, ancient Egypt was a slave society from the beginning to the end. Here, the flames of war never stopped, whether it was the resistance of the people inside or the wanton aggression of external forces. The regimes change frequently. It is hard to imagine that the ancient Egyptian wizards could touch the power of faith. Because of this, once the Muggles' firm belief and continuous offerings are missing, they will quickly decline and disappear. Roland thought to himself. Suddenly, Llewellyn felt as if he had passed through an extremely huge and heavy curtain. At that moment, the scene before his eyes was completely different from the outside world. He originally thought that he would see a desolate and decaying scene, but what appeared in his eyes at this moment was lush green. Could this mysterious curtain be a magic barrier? It seems to be similar to the Muggle expulsion spell. This place is like a dream world built on an oasis, with bustling wizards everywhere. From time to time, some people will whiz by on a flying carpet. The surroundings were brightly lit, and the dazzling light illuminated every corner, as if lighting up the whole world. Here, the wizards could not feel the deep, quiet and dark atmosphere that the night should have. Instead, there is a mysterious atmosphere that is full of charm and intoxicating. This unique atmosphere is like an invisible net, tightly covering this area, making everyone who steps into it involuntarily attracted by it. In addition, what is even more eye-catching is the various strange and wonderful creatures. They are either flying in the air or running on the ground, with different shapes and forms, which are completely different from the existing magical creatures in the UK. Roland, look at that flying carpet over there. Ron couldn't contain his excitement and shouted at the top of his lungs. His voice echoed in the noisy market, attracting the attention of many people around them. This is the legendary wizard market. Because there are many wizards from all over the world gathered here, so even at night, this market is still very lively and bustling. Besides, the Egyptian Ministry of Magic has not issued a clear order to prohibit the sale of magical creatures. Just as Rowling was concentrating on staring at the strange creatures around him, Bill explained to him very considerately. After hearing this, the twin brothers of the Weasley family suddenly became extremely excited as if they had been injected with chicken blood. Chapter 108. Setting up a stall. "We're here!" Bill shouted, and the carriage that was moving slowly stopped. Then, an extremely luxurious and magnificent palace appeared in front of Llewellyn. This palace is magnificent and solemn. Its architectural style is very different from that of China and the United Kingdom, exuding a strong exotic atmosphere. "This is the Egyptian Ministry of Magic, and the hotel is also designed here," Bill said. Then, under the guidance of the staff, they walked to their own room. As soon as they opened the door, the first thing that came into view was the spacious and bright space. The moonlight poured in through the window, dyeing the whole room with a layer of mysterious silver light. Looking at the bed again, it is not only large in size, but also as soft as a cloud. Once you see it, you can't help but want to lie on it to try its comfort. I have to say that Egyptian wizards enjoy life better than Muggles. No wonder they were ruled by wizards in the past. Rowling thought to himself. At this moment, a clear reminder sound suddenly came from my mind. Ding, the host's location is detected to be in the Egyptian Ministry of Magic. Do you want to sign in? Llewellyn silently said in his heart, sign in. As soon as he finished speaking, the system responded immediately, sign in successful. Congratulations to the host for winning the special reward, not affected by the curse. In an instant, Rowling felt a surge of energy rushing into his body like a tide. It felt like his whole body was wrapped in an invisible force, as if he was covered with a thin shield. However, this wonderful experience only lasted for a moment, and he soon returned to normal, but he could clearly feel that some subtle changes seemed to have taken place in his body. Just as Rowling was about to calm down and carefully appreciate this change, a quick knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. He walked quickly to the door, opened it and saw George, Fred, and Ron standing outside. Before he could open his mouth to ask, George said impatiently, Rowling, we want to go shopping at the market we just passed by, so we came to find you. How about you go on an adventure with us?" After saying that, he looked at Rowling with anticipation, his eyes flashing with excitement. "Okay, I just want to go out for a walk too." Rowling agreed with a smile. He was also very interested in the Egyptian markets. The four of them came to the market together. It was bustling with people coming and going, and there were all kinds of strange and bizarre items, which made people overwhelmed. Rowling looked around curiously, while George, Fred and Ron excitedly moved among the crowd, picking up some interesting things and playing with them from time to time. "Rowling, did you bring the Egyptian internet core? Otherwise, why don't we just take out all those crystal balls and sell them? There are so many wizards here, it's a great opportunity for publicity," George asked Rowling with anticipation. "Of course, I have already prepared everything since I returned from Hogwarts. Your idea is really great." Rowling has always been a man of his word. He quickly glanced around the surroundings, then picked an unoccupied vacant space nearby and started setting up the stall without saying a word. He first spread a large piece of cloth on the ground, and then carefully placed a bunch of crystal balls that were crystal clear and emitting mysterious light neatly on it. Then, Llewellyn concentrated on casting magic, continuously injecting magic power into each crystal ball. With the Egyptian internet core, cross-border networking is now possible. These ordinary crystal balls seem to have been given life in an instant, becoming magical and full of charm. Vivid pictures gradually emerge on their surfaces, those are the wonderful videos uploaded by many British little wizards on the internet. Since English is the universal language of the entire wizarding world, especially in a place like this that gathers wizard elites from various countries, and George, Fred, and Ron are shouting their wares loudly, it doesn't take long before a large group of curious wizards gather in front of their stall. People rushed forward like a tide, tightly surrounding the mysterious object, and kept muttering various questions. The noise was as noisy as a busy city. You know, for this group of wizards who are obsessed with adventure and eager to seek excitement, having a means of efficient instant communication is simply a dream. What's more, this precious gadget in front of them actually has the miraculous ability to transcend geographical restrictions and transmit information in real time. This unprecedented innovation really makes these wizards feel incredible, but in fact they don't need to delve into the principles behind it, as long as it works well. After all, in the magical world full of fantasy, many things are difficult to explain with common sense. After George Fred Rolling's wonderful demonstration, the wizards around him who had been stunned for a long time could no longer contain their excitement, and they rushed to express their strong desire to buy to Rowling. However, Rowling clearly told everyone that if they wanted to buy, they had to use gold galleons as bargaining chips. Because the Ministry of Magic was not far away, and the currency exchange bank was also located here, many people who wanted to buy went there to exchange the required currency. However, some guys with a keen sense of smell seemed to smell a good opportunity to get rich and tried to obtain this treasure through other means, but they were naturally rejected by Rowling. It seemed that these explorers would never be short of golden coins and those coveted treasures. Not long after, the first batch of wizards who came to exchange with excitement could not wait to wave the gold galleons in their hands and began to buy frantically. It is worth mentioning that most of them were small teams traveling in groups of 3 or 5. Every time they made a purchase, they would often place an order together, and the scene was extremely lively. Seeing huge amounts of gold galleons flowing into their pockets, George and the others could no longer suppress their joy, and they became extremely excited. Of course, at this moment, among the many wizards who stopped to watch, there were also some who showed greed without hiding their expressions. After all, they were a group of adventurers who walked on the edge of life and death, chasing excitement and profit. As for murder and robbery, they were already accustomed to it, and it was commonplace. Moreover, the people standing in front of them were just a few young wizards who were not very experienced in the world. Chapter 109, Taken Away by the Ministry of Magic. However, despite the dark wizard's restlessness, no one dared to act rashly. Because in this bustling and noisy market, there is an iron rule that must be strictly followed: any personal grudges are not allowed to be resolved by violence here. And this commandment is a legal provision formulated and promulgated by the powerful Ministry of Magic. However, some unfriendly looks were not only noticed by George and Fred, but also by Ron, who was naturally friendly. Ron held on to Rowling's sleeve tightly and told him in a low voice all the details he had just observed. It seems that these people's sinister intentions have been exposed, even little Ronnie can sense the clues. Llewellyn thought to himself. So far, he has successfully sold a total of 300 items. Since most of these transactions come from team purchases, the sales speed is extremely fast. Just as Llewellyn was about to close the business for the day, several figures in neat uniforms suddenly appeared in front of him. Llewellyn only needed to take a glance to immediately recognize the clothes they were wearing. That was the iconic outfit of the Egyptian Ministry of Magic. "Hello, young wizard, please stay for a moment. We are staff from the Ministry of Magic. We just received news from the bank about a large amount of British currency exchange, so we came here to investigate. Please come with us and help us find out whether there is any use of foreign currency to disrupt the market order in the local area," the staff member said solemnly. Faced with such a request, Llewellyn did not show any resistance, but quickly packed his bags and expressed his willingness to fully cooperate. George and Fred looked nonchalant, as if it had nothing to do with them. However, Ron couldn't help but mutter, "This is bad, it's all over." He was obviously very frightened. After all, Ron was only 12 years old and in a foreign country, so he was inevitably feeling anxious. After entering the solemn and mysterious Ministry of Magic, Rowling and his party of 4 were led into the Department of Law Enforcement. They followed the staff through a long corridor and finally stopped at the door of a spacious, bright but slightly deserted room. As he entered the room, he was greeted by the smell of old books. The walls were surrounded by tall bookshelves filled with all kinds of ancient magic books and volumes. In the middle of the room was a rectangular wooden table with a few worn-out chairs surrounding it. After everyone was seated, the staff member in charge of the questioning began to investigate Llewellyn and others with a serious expression. First, he learned in detail the purpose of Llewellyn's visit and their identity background. When the staff member learned that Rowling was a traveling wizard from a foreign country, he couldn't help but frown slightly and said that he needed to further verify the relevant documents to ensure the authenticity of the information. After a careful inspection and confirmation, the staff, who had been tense at first, gradually relaxed their attitude. After all, they couldn't be too strict with such a guest who came from afar and had a legitimate identity. Afterwards, Llewellyn took the initiative to show everyone the wonderful uses of the internet, a magical tool. He tapped the crystal ball lightly, and colorful pictures and rich and diverse information popped up on the screen instantly, which amazed the staff present and showed great interest in their eyes. Well, okay, I guess you have to wait a little while. Foreign items like this must be handed over to the Foreign Items Import Department for processing according to regulations. However, from my point of view, you haven't violated any laws. Hearing this, Ron, who had been worried all the time, finally breathed a sigh of relief. At the same time, the clerk skillfully waved his wand, muttered something, and then a message with a faint light quickly flew out. After doing these actions, he turned to look at Llewellyn, smiled and explained, "As you have just seen with your own eyes, little wizard, our current communication method is really inconvenient. If the distance is short, you can use simple communication spells to transmit messages, but once it involves a long distance, you can only rely on magical creatures with special abilities to help. So, I think our Ministry of Magic will definitely be very interested in this new thing you brought." At this moment, a light sound of footsteps came from far away. Everyone looked in the direction of the sound and saw a man in unique clothes slowly walking into the room. Compared with the plain and monotonous dress style of other ordinary employees, the clothes on this man were obviously more gorgeous and exquisite, as if showing his unique status and power. "Hello, young wizard. I am the director of the Foreign Goods Import Department. Just now, I have learned from my subordinates about the items you brought. In this case, there is no need to beat around the bush. Let's get straight to the point. We are very interested in the items in your hands and hope to obtain the right to purchase or sell them. I believe you have also realized today that the wizards here are not as friendly as imagined. If you let us handle this matter, you can save a lot of unnecessary troubles and troubles." Rowling nodded his agreement without hesitation. After all, he knew that he could not stay here for a long time, and it was undoubtedly a wise move to entrust the matter to the Ministry of Magic. So he responded readily, "No problem, sir, I am happy to cooperate with you. My name is Rowling Gandalf, and I currently have a full 1,000 magic crystal balls on hand. According to the normal selling price, each one costs 50 gold galleons, but considering the deep friendship that is about to be established between us, I decided to give a special discount and only charge gold galleons." Hearing this offer, Mysel's eyes suddenly lit up. He secretly calculated in his heart, this is a huge kickback of 5,000 gold galleons. Moreover, if this batch of magic crystal balls is put on the market at a higher price, it will definitely make a lot of money. Thinking of this, he said with a smile on his face, "Haha, Mr. Rowland, thank you so much. Durer Messer is very honored to meet such a generous and reasonable person like you, and looks forward to starting a wonderful business cooperation journey with you." After the transaction was successfully concluded, Llewellyn and his 4 companions returned to their hotel happily. At this moment, everyone's face was filled with irrepressible excitement. Who could have expected that things would go so smoothly? That feeling was like countless gold galleons suddenly rained down from the sky, which was a pleasant surprise. Chapter 110. The Weasleys whose property was confiscated. Rowling carefully took out all his earnings. The 300 sold at the market were worth a total of 15,000 gold galleons, plus the 1,000 he had just gotten. The total was a whopping 60,000. These glittering treasures piled together looked like a towering golden mountain, dazzling and dazzling. George, Fred, and Ron looked at the spectacular scene with greedy eyes, as if they were about to be swallowed up by the golden mountain. Then, Rowling took a deep breath and announced solemnly, "Next, I will start distributing the profits. After deducting various costs, Fred, George, you can each take 10,000 gold galleons." Before he finished speaking, Ron was so shocked that he couldn't close his mouth. He stared at Rowling with wide eyes in disbelief, and was speechless for a while. However, Rowling did not stop what he was doing. He counted out another 50 gold galleons and handed them to Ron, saying, "Ron, these 100 gold galleons are yours. Take it as a reward for your help at the market." Ron was flattered when he heard this. He stammered, "Roland, this is really too much. I'm just trying to do my best." At the same time, he couldn't help but stare at the gold galleons, his eyes never leaving them for a moment. "Don't be shy, little Ronnie. This little money is nothing to Rolling," George and Fred joked. Since the hotel is located inside the Ministry of Magic, when Rolling was brought into the ministry, he was seen by Ginny, who was just finishing her tour in the hotel. She was so anxious that she ran all the way to the Weasleys' room and breathlessly reported to them that she saw Rolling and her brothers being captured by the Ministry of Magic. When Mrs. Weasley heard this, her legs suddenly went weak and she almost collapsed to the ground. Fortunately, Arthur Weasley was quick to support her at the critical moment. Then, Arthur quickly gathered Bill and Percy's family and rushed to the Ministry of Magic to find out the details. When they rushed to the Ministry of Magic, they found out that it was a misunderstanding and the people involved had been released long ago. After knowing this news, everyone finally breathed a sigh of relief. However, at this moment, Mrs. Weasley's anger was burning more and more fiercely. She shouted angrily, "These naughty Weasley boys, I will teach them a lesson." Before she finished speaking, she walked towards the children's room angrily, ready to question them. However, when she opened the doors one by one, she found that there was no one inside and no response. In this way, the group finally arrived at the door of Llewellyn's room. With a flash of magic light, the door-opening spell instantly unlocked the tightly closed door. In an instant, the door slowly opened. At this moment, Arthur Weasley and Mrs. Weasley, who were standing outside the door, were horrified, their mouths opened wide enough to fit an egg in. Their eyes were firmly attracted by the scene before them. The ground was covered with piles of gold galleons shining with dazzling golden light. Bill, Percy, and Ginny were also shocked, their eyes widened, as if they couldn't believe what they saw. The sudden change made Rowling and other Weasley family members feel terrified. However, when they saw that the person coming was their family, their anxiety was slightly relieved. But at this moment, George and Fred were like two frightened rabbits, frantically trying to hide their share of the gold galleons behind them, for fear of being seen. What on earth is going on? Mrs. Weasley finally came to her senses. She was furious and shouted at George and Fred in a voice as loud as thunder. Facing their mother's questioning, George and Fred looked at each other, not knowing how to answer for a while. After realizing that these gold galleons were the proceeds from selling the crystal ball with Rowling just now, Mrs. Weasley's expression gradually changed. The raging anger gradually subsided, replaced by an unconcealable joy. It turned out that Arthur and Mrs. Weasley had no idea how much wealth George and Fred had. They only knew that their two sons had made some money with Rowling. As for Percy, Ginny, and Ron, they had already been bribed by the Weasley twins by various means and became their allies in keeping secrets. When Percy and Ginny saw with their own eyes the mountains of gold galleons sparkling with dazzling light, their eyes widened instantly, as if they were cast under a spell, and they involuntarily took a step forward and ran towards the treasures. You know, the hush money George and Weasley gave them was only a paltry 20 gold galleons each. They had no idea how much of the huge wealth the Weasley twins had earned. At this moment, the astonishing amount of gold galleons in front of her made Mrs. Weasley very happy. She smiled happily and helped George and Fred collect these gold galleons. There is no doubt that all the money was eventually put into Mrs. Weasley's pocket. After all, George and Fred were not yet adults and could not properly manage such a huge amount of money. Arthur and Mrs. Weasley naturally knew that George and Fred were doing business with Rowling at Hogwarts. However, they never expected Rowling to be so generous. The Weasleys did not ask about the school's profits, and they did not continue to ask for more greedily, but chose to stop when they had enough. Because they knew that a happy and harmonious family was far more important than money. If they blindly pursued profits, it would inevitably cause conflicts and estrangements among family members. After some distribution, George and Fred each received only 100 gold galleons out of the 10 gold galleons, and the young Ron got even less, only gold galleons. The reason why he was given so little was because Ron's wand was unfortunately broken and needed to be replaced, otherwise it would be difficult for him to even get this little pocket money. George and Fred both showed a sad look on their faces, but they knew in their hearts that the other was just pretending, because they deeply understood the hardships and difficulties of their parents. Although they felt a little pain in their hearts at the moment, after all, they had lost so much money, but when they thought of the thousands of glittering galleons they still had, the feeling of loss was instantly alleviated. It was as if these riches could make up for all the losses. In contrast, Ron's condition at this time can be described as horrible. He was almost about to cry out loud, and he was in extreme pain. The emotional gap was too great. In just a few minutes, he experienced a huge change from ecstasy to grief. He was originally looking forward to a good result with joy, but he didn't expect that he would eventually face a heartbreaking blow. Chapter 111. Earthquake. The next morning, under Bill's guidance, everyone set out on a journey to the pyramid in the wizarding world. Different from the ruins in the Muggle world, everything here seemed solemn and dignified. This pyramid was not only Bill's current workplace, but also a mysterious building. Before he even got close, Llewellyn could sense an ominous aura coming towards him. The towering pyramid stood tall and majestic, overlooking the earth like a giant. The sunlight poured down, giving it a dazzling golden coat, making it seem even more sacred and inviolable. However, through Llewellyn's unique elemental eyes, he saw a different scene. The black and purple energy was intertwined like a venomous snake, constantly emitting a frightening ominous breath. The scorching sun shone on the surface of the pyramid, but instead of dispelling this evil force, it seemed to be swallowed by it, gradually melting and spilling more dark energy. There is no doubt that this is the terrifying power formed by the power of countless curses. Perhaps, the legendary death without life is an extremely powerful curse. In Llewellyn's vision, many wizards and adventurers gathered inside the pyramid, trying their best to break the many curses on the tower. However, these curses were like greedy demons, ruthlessly eroding their vitality. Every bit of vitality quietly flowed out of the wizards' bodies and finally gathered in a secret room at the bottom of the pyramid. When a wizard's vitality is lost, he may simply feel exhausted in the short term. However, this condition is often easily mistaken as a side effect caused by excessive use of magic power. However, if this situation continues to develop, the consequences will be disastrous. The wizard is very likely to suddenly die in the pyramid. There are many bodies buried inside the pyramids. These mummies include those who claim to be pharaohs, and probably also wizards who disguised themselves as gods in ancient times. Perhaps both types of people are involved. However, one thing is certain, if these bodies really come back to life, it will definitely not be a good thing. Because they look more like evil demons. Voldemort had visited Egypt before, which made people wonder if he had learned how to absorb Ginny's soul power in the Chamber of Secrets from here. You know, Tom Riddle was only a teenager at the time. He came here when he was a teenager. Well, think about it, I am only 12 years old now, and I have also come to this place. It must be admitted that Voldemort undoubtedly possessed extraordinary talents. However, it is regrettable that although he adopted the strategy of making many Horcruxes to absorb powerful energy from them, it seemed that victory was in sight, but in the end, all his efforts were wasted because of Harry's unexpected variable. Obviously, excessive and frequent separation of the soul will not only damage the soul but also reduce the IQ, and will also cause the loss of one's own luck. This mysterious and elusive thing made Voldemort either never act or fail even though he had many excellent opportunities to kill Harry Potter. At this moment, when Rowling approached the pyramid, he was surprised to find that there were a series of strange symbols and mysterious spells engraved on the four walls of the pyramid. They seemed to be whispering about those long-forgotten ancient secrets. Perhaps, hidden here is some kind of magical knowledge that is far more profound and obscure than imagined, or it may be the ultimate mystery of the nature of the soul. Just as Rowling was about to explore further, Bill rushed forward, blocked his way, and shouted sternly, "Rowling, don't go in. There are many vicious curses hidden inside this mysterious pyramid that have not yet been lifted. This time we come here just to take a brief tour around the periphery. If you really want to gain more relevant knowledge, you can go to the world where the Muggles are and visit the pyramids there." Hearing this, Llewellyn suddenly came back to his senses as if awakened from a dream. He once again cast his eyes on the wall of the pyramid, but the scene that came into his eyes at this moment shocked him. The words and patterns that were originally clearly visible disappeared without a trace. A chill instantly rose up from his spine, and Llewellyn couldn't help but feel fear. He thought to himself, what a close call. Just now, he had fallen into confusion so easily, and the strong desire to explore deep in his heart was quietly aroused. Under Bill's confident guidance, Rowling and the Weasley family put on those gorgeous Egyptian costumes. They stood far away, and then someone was responsible for pressing the shutter to take such a meaningful photo. You know, this is a special request from the Daily Prophet, because only by letting this lucky winner of the Gold Galleon Award appear on the front page of the newspaper can the best publicity effect be achieved. At this moment, the sharp-eyed Rowling noticed that a huge rat suddenly appeared in Ron's hand. In an instant, he thought that this was undoubtedly the Daily Prophet that Sirius Black had seen. In this way, it seems that it can be asserted that the thrilling journey of the third school year will start from this photo. However, just as the photo was taken, an unexpected situation occurred. The originally calm earth suddenly shook violently, and even the top of the towering pyramid had sporadic small pieces of stone falling continuously. "Oh no, it's an earthquake! Everyone, run for your lives!" Ron shouted with a look of horror on his face. Almost at the same time, many panicked wizards ran out of the pyramid one after another. George suddenly pulled out an enormous flying carpet. What was even more amazing was that the carpet was floating in the air steadily and motionlessly. Seeing this, the other Weasleys did not hesitate at all, and jumped onto the magic carpet one by one. "Rowling, don't dawdle! Run!" George shouted at Rowling anxiously, revealing a hint of anxiety and eagerness in his voice. Llewellyn boarded the flying carpet and quickly opened the Eye of Elements, trying to understand all the changes around him. He had a vague foreboding in his heart, thinking that this sudden earthquake was not as simple as it seemed. After all, in the magical world they lived in, the magical elements had always been in an extremely stable state, and the Earth's crust was extremely solid. However, the earthquake that occurred at this moment seemed unusual. It was really too unusual. Under the Eye of Elements, Llewellyn was surprised to find that there were groups of inky black breaths surging under the pyramid. Countless gloomy skeletons emerged from the ground and swarmed towards the ground. Among them, the energy fluctuations emitted by the secret room hidden deep underground were the strongest and most violent. "Oh no! This is a big trouble. It looks like this damn mummy is really going to come back to life." Rowling's face changed drastically. Chapter 112. Mutation. At the same time, the Ministry of Magic keenly sensed something strange. An extremely evil and creepy force was gushing out from the inside of the mysterious and ancient pyramid. It was as if a demon that had been sleeping for thousands of years had awakened, releasing endless darkness and fear. In an instant, countless auras appeared in the sky. Some of them appeared like ghosts using the apparition spell, some flew from far to near on a gorgeous flying carpet, and some flew back and forth in the air on agile and flexible broomsticks. What's more, some even rode huge and ferocious dragons to descend. In the blink of an eye, the number of auras in the air was too numerous to count. "George, let's run for our lives. The mummies in this pyramid have come back to life, and it seems that there are wizards from ancient times. Let's go!" Rowling shouted anxiously. Hearing this, the Weasley family couldn't help but be shocked and their faces changed drastically. The existence that could cause such a strong earthquake must be a terrifying dark wizard with extraordinary strength. George knew the seriousness of the situation, so he made a prompt decision and prepared to turn around and flee without hesitation. But at this critical moment, a huge black curtain covering the sky and the sun suddenly appeared without warning, like an airtight net, trapping all the wizards and Rowling who had rushed to the scene, making it impossible for them to escape. Faced with this sudden change, the Weasleys panicked, but they quickly took out their wands and cast various powerful spells to try to break through the siege. Unfortunately, the result was the opposite of what they expected, and all these efforts were in vain. All the attacks were like a stone sinking into the sea without any response, and were easily bounced back by the strange black curtain, and could not produce any substantial impact at all. The aurors in midair felt nervous, and an ominous premonition came to their minds. However, with years of rigorous training and rich combat experience, they quickly adjusted their mentality and did not show any panic. At this moment, a shocking scene happened. The ground suddenly shook violently, and then huge cracks spread like a spider web. Accompanied by low roars, countless skeletons of various shapes slowly crawled out from the cracks. Some were as white as snow, some were as black as ink, and some were wearing tattered robes, just like the wizards who had died here before. Faced with such a bizarre scene, the leading auror gave the order without hesitation, "Everyone pay attention, immediately launch a devastating attack on the skeletons below." After receiving the order, all wizards cast various powerful magic spells without hesitation. For a moment, the light was shining, fireballs were flying, and lightning was interlaced. Since these skeletons could only move slowly on the ground and could not fly, they were soon at a disadvantage and were firmly suppressed by the wizards in the air. But even so, many wizards on the ground were unfortunately killed. The wizards who were killed by the skeletons would instantly emit billowing black smoke, which was obviously affected by some kind of vicious curse. Afterwards, they would lose their minds and join the skeletons' camp, becoming one of the enemies. Although the situation gradually became unfavorable, the wizards did not give up easily. They gritted their teeth and continued to fight desperately with the skeletons that kept emerging. However, as time passed, the skeletons under the ground seemed to be endless and continued to gush out. At the same time, the wizards in the air were casting spells continuously for a long time, and their magic power was constantly being consumed, and the frequency of casting spells began to gradually slow down. Llewellyn watched all this and secretly complained in his heart. He knew very well that the real mastermind behind the scenes had not yet appeared. If this crisis could not be resolved as soon as possible, the consequences would be disastrous. This is consuming the Auror's manpower. Faced with such a critical situation, Rowling reacted very quickly. He drew out his wand without hesitation, muttered something, and a powerful forbidden flame spell was suddenly activated like lightning. Although Llewellyn did not overexpend his own magic power, this strike alone was enough to turn all the skeletons within a radius of 20 meters on the ground into ashes. In an instant, a small mushroom cloud suddenly rose below, as if the earth was shaking. The wizards and Weasley who were hovering in the air were all dumbfounded, deeply shocked by the amazing scene before them. They stared with wide eyes, looking at the land that was once full of skeletons and now became empty, and the terrifying power was even more astonishing. Rowling, what kind of spell did you just cast? It was so powerful. George and Fred shouted at the same time. Haha, it's just a trivial trick, not worth mentioning. To learn this spell, you need extremely high talent. Rowling replied with a relaxed smile. However, at this moment, a strong sense of foreboding suddenly struck his heart, echoing in his mind like a long alarm bell. Llewellyn's face changed, knowing that the situation was not good, and his elemental eye immediately began to scan the entire battlefield. As expected, he saw that the secret room hidden deep underground had been opened at some point. Without further ado, Rowling acted decisively and quickly used the Shadow Claw card. With a flash of light, he and Weasley disappeared without a trace in an instant, blending into the surrounding darkness and becoming invisible. At this moment, the towering and mysterious pyramid suddenly emitted an extremely strong black aura, which spread like billowing smoke. Then, a horrifying scene appeared. Mummies wrapped tightly in layers of bandages slowly walked out of the pyramid. Their emerald green eyes flashed with strange light, as if they could penetrate the human soul. Its body movements seemed extremely stiff, and every step had a mechanical rhythm, and the extremely sharp and piercing howl was like the cry of a night owl, echoing throughout the entire space, making people feel chills and tingling. This situation made everyone present unable to take it lightly. They opened their eyes wide with looks of astonishment, because they clearly felt that what was emanating continuously from each mummy was the suffocating and terrifying dark aura. In an instant, the atmosphere became extremely solemn. The tense atmosphere was like an invisible net that enveloped everyone. Suddenly, one of the mummies slowly rose into the air and hovered in midair. It opened its mouth and uttered a chilling voice, "I know clearly that one of you is the one I have been looking for. This person has the power of origin that I desire. Hand him over to me quickly. In this way, I will let all of you go safely." After hearing these words, Llewellyn felt his heart sink, and his heart instantly sank to the bottom of the valley. An indescribable ominous premonition surged into his heart like a tide. Chapter 113. Pyramid Explosion. Llewellyn frowned and thought secretly, there is no doubt that the target this guy is looking for is me. I was able to reshape this new body with the help of the origin of water. This guy in front of me is trying to borrow the source of power in my body to achieve his wish of rebirth. Thinking of this, Llewellyn's face became more and more gloomy. At the same time, the mummy actually flew up into the air and was suspended in the air. This sudden scene frightened all the Aurors present. They stared with wide eyes at the figure in the air that looked like a demon descending into the world. There is no doubt that this monster exuding a terrifying aura must have a powerful force beyond imagination. At this moment, Oro, the leader of the team, stepped forward. He took a deep breath, suppressed his fear, and shouted loudly. "We have no idea who you are talking about, but since you are so wanton and lawless, we will never let you go easily." Before he finished speaking, he waved his arm and a dazzling spell shot out like lightning. As the leader launched the attack, the other orators also mustered up their courage and used their respective magical skills, and a thrilling battle began. For a moment, colorful lights intertwined and flickered, various powerful magical fluctuations rose and fell, and the entire space was shrouded in a tense and intense atmosphere. Similarly, there were orators with strong magical power among the orators who began to launch a fierce attack on the remaining mummies. Those mummies, each flew into the air, although not as skillful as the first one, but still filled with black air. The bandages on their bodies kept getting longer, as if they were born to be their weapons, and they fought with the orators. Some of the orators had the upper hand, while others were evenly matched. However, even under the siege of 2 orators, the leading mummy always had the upper hand. Llewellyn stared at the fierce battlefield with a serious look, and his eye of element flashed brightly. He knew that although there were many skeletons on the ground, the threat was relatively small. What was really worrying was the mummies hovering in the air. These mummies possess powerful powers. What is even more terrifying is that what is invisible to the naked eye is that each of them is connected to an energy thread, which continuously obtains energy from the pyramid. And the end of this thread is the mysterious pyramid. However, as they approached the pyramid, the curse power of the surrounding black fog became stronger and stronger, as if forming an invisible barrier. This is not only the core of the battlefield, but also the most dangerous place. If these mummies cannot be dealt with as soon as possible, the aura will eventually be swallowed by the black fog. At the same time, Rowling and the Weasleys will also fall into a huge crisis. George, we must fly to the top of the pyramid quickly. I want to destroy this pyramid. The source of energy for these evil creatures is the pyramid. Only by destroying it can we gain an advantage. Rowling shouted anxiously. After hearing what Rowling said, George reacted immediately, quickly controlling the flying carpet to avoid the wizards and fly high into the sky. At the same time, Rowling no longer retained the magic power in his body, and poured it into the wand continuously. Then, Rowling cast a violent flame taboo spell and instantly shot it towards the 150-meter-high pyramid below. This spell was as powerful as a falling star. Even before it touched the pyramid, one could already feel the powerful force it contained. The black mist that originally attached to the pyramid was quickly penetrated, and the spell hit the middle of the pyramid directly. There was a loud bang, and the spell hit the inside of the pyramid. Then, the center of the pyramid collapsed rapidly, and a strong impact spread in all directions. At the same time, the curtain that originally covered the surroundings also began to collapse. "Run!" Rowling shouted. George also witnessed this shocking scene. He did not hesitate to drive the flying carpet out and escape from the scene, speeding away. They did not stop flying until they were far away from the danger zone, watching everything happening in front of them from a distance. As the pyramid collapsed, mummies that lost their energy supply fell out one after another. Some of them were broken, and some were still struggling, but they no longer posed the threat they had before. Some of the orators keenly sensed the huge explosion on the pyramid and fled quickly at the first opportunity, but some were entangled by the mummies and could not escape, and were directly hit far away by the terrifying impact force. "Oh my God, Bill, it's too dangerous here. I won't allow you to stay here any longer. You have to come back to England with us," Mrs. Weasley said in fear. Her voice was full of worry and fear because she had just witnessed a terrible battle. "Yes, I think we have to leave quickly. With something like this happening, the Egyptian Ministry of Magic will be very busy next," Arthur Weasley added. There was a hint of seriousness on his face, because he knew that this battle might cause more trouble. The Weasleys nodded in agreement. They all realized the danger of this place, and they didn't want to get involved in any more conflicts. Bill didn't refute it. He knew there were many unexplored pyramids here. If they were all like this, it would undoubtedly be very dangerous. So the Weasleys quickly packed up their bags and prepared to leave this dangerous place. They moved along the edge of the desert, avoiding the still burning fires and broken pyramids. The Weasleys were in a heavy mood because they didn't know whether this incident would affect their children. After all, they were only teenagers. However, they decided to return to England as soon as possible and stay away from this dangerous place. Llewellyn was naturally very willing. He came here just to find something new. However, what he saw now was a desolate and dilapidated Egypt. In addition, his internet expansion plan had been successfully completed. That afternoon, the Weasleys boarded the return flight to England. Unexpectedly, they came and went in a hurry, and it seemed that they had stayed in Egypt for less than 3 days before they had to embark on their return journey. Just after leaving the Egyptian border, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Especially Ginny and Ron. After all, they were only first and second year wizards, and they were inevitably afraid when facing life and death tests. But the Weasley twins were different, they were fearless and were two funny people. Rolling, I recorded this thrilling battle today. I will definitely become the most popular blogger on the internet. Fred said excitedly. Chapter 114. Text Style. I hope you didn't record me. I don't like being in the spotlight. Llewellyn responded indifferently. He didn't want to be the focus of everyone's attention. What a pity. Although I didn't capture you casting the spell, I recorded the explosion of the pyramid. It will definitely become popular. Fred said excitedly. He couldn't wait to share this video. Llewellyn was speechless. If anyone was causing trouble, it had to be George Fred. By the way, George, when did you buy this flying carpet? Llewellyn asked in confusion. Haha, just last night Fred and I secretly went to the market again, wanting to study it. It's being promoted in the British wizarding world, but it's a pity that these are all made of dragon skin. The material is too expensive, and Fred and I made a great determination to buy one for 1,000 gold galleons. George said with a pained look. Llewellyn's eyes widened, looking at George in disbelief. You actually spent so much money on a flying carpet? That's a lot of money. George shrugged and said helplessly, we can't help it. We are just too curious and think this flying carpet is very interesting and can bring us a lot of fun. But now it seems that it is really useful. Llewellyn nodded in agreement. At this time, Fred's video has caused a sensation on the internet. Whether in Egypt or the UK, people are deeply attracted by this video. In the video, the ancient pyramid is shrouded in rolling black mist, as if the gate of hell is open, and countless ominous skulls emerge from the black mist. Finally, a powerful spell, like a falling star, instantly raised the 150-meter-high pyramid to the ground. The whole scene was as shocking as the Last Judgment, and people couldn't help but marvel at it. This visual feast undoubtedly brought the audience an unprecedented shocking experience. As night fell, Rowling finally arrived at London Airport. This is such a failed trip. Ron complained with an unhappy look on his face. But it's really exciting, isn't it? Ha ha ha. Llewellyn joked with a smile. His laughter echoed in the night sky, as if adding a touch of relaxation to the whole scene. I think I have to go back, Rowling continued, his tone becoming serious. I have informed the Ministry of Magic that I will end my trip early, so the investiture ceremony may be held earlier accordingly. Well, although I'm a little sorry that I can't invite you to the Burrow again, I still want to congratulate you, Rowling. Mrs. Weasley said enthusiastically. Her eyes showed gratitude to Rowling. After all, when they were in Egypt, if it weren't for Rowling's help, they would probably be in an extremely dangerous situation. Thank you, ma'am. It's my honor to help. Llewellyn replied with a smile, I look forward to seeing you again. After that, he turned and left, his figure gradually blending into the night. Llewellyn soared into the sky like a bird, cutting through the night sky, moving forward with the bright moonlight and shining stars. He passed through the dense forest until the edge of the dark forest gradually appeared before his eyes. When Llewellyn returned to the valley he was familiar with, he stepped into the magic circle and immediately felt a strong and rich life force. At this moment, the tree of life was shining with an unusually emerald green light, as crystal clear as an emerald. Dots of green light were like stars, floating down from the treetops, converging into a mysterious stream of light, and finally falling on a few eggs that were flashing with faint fluorescence. Is this the legendary druid? Llewellyn said to himself in confusion. At this moment, Dolly suddenly appeared in front of him, her eyes full of joy. My little master, you are finally back. Llewellyn smiled and nodded in response, then cast his eyes on the mysterious eggs and asked curiously, are these eggs bred by the Tree of Life? Dolly nodded and replied, yes, little master. Not long ago, this Tree of Life began to release green energy continuously and gathered here. When the energy dissipated, these eggs miraculously appeared here. Since then, every day green light has been raining down from the treetops, all focused on these eggs. Dolly explained what happened in detail. Oh, so that's how it is. Have there been any other changes in the family during the year I was away? Luo Lin continued to ask. My little master, apart from this tree, the centaur tribe still sends some healing potions as before. The unicorns will also send their shed hair. Other than that, there haven't been many changes. Dolly answered truthfully. Okay, take me to see those things now. Luo Lin ordered. Then, they came to a room with several boxes. When Luo Lin opened one of the boxes containing unicorn hair, a faint silver light instantly shone on his face. Luo Lin was shocked, this is too much. A box full of unicorn hair. Looking at these precious materials, an idea suddenly came to Rolling's mind, should I make a wizard robe? After all, I will go to the Ministry of Magic in a few days. If I dress too shabby, it will not be my style. Hehe, then I will be the brightest one. When he thought of this, Rolling could not help but chuckle to himself, and bursts of silly laughter came out of his mouth from time to time. The next morning, before dawn, Luo Lin couldn't wait to get up, put the big box of precious unicorn hair into the storage ring, and left the wooden house. He kept flying in the sky and finally arrived at the door of Madame Malkin's robe store. Luo Lin gently pushed open the door and walked into the store. The store was filled with a faint fragrance, and the walls were covered with all kinds of gorgeous magic robes, which made people dazzled. He walked to the counter and explained his purpose to Madame Malkin, who was busy. I want to customize a special wizard robe. Please use these unicorn hairs to make it for me. Rolling said, putting the box in the storage ring on the ground and opening the lid. Madame Malkin looked at the bundles of glittering silver unicorn hair in the box in amazement, her eyes widened and her mouth slightly opened. She shook her head in disbelief and muttered to herself, so much unicorn hair, it's such a luxury. Luo Lin smiled and nodded, he knew that these unicorn hairs were valuable, but for him, they were more than just a material. He believed that only the purest and most sacred materials could make a magic robe that was truly suitable for him. Madame Malkin picked up a unicorn hair and gently stroked its soft texture, feeling the magic contained in it. She closed her eyes and silently chanted a spell, and the wand in her hand began to flash. Then, she put the unicorn hair into a huge spinning wheel and began to spin it. As the spinning wheel turned, strands of unicorn hair fluttered in the air. Madame Malkin skillfully waved her wand, guiding the silver threads to interweave with each other to form a beautiful and mysterious fabric. Chapter 115, Fire cannot burn away filth, stay away. Rolling stood quietly by, watching Madame Malkin's every move, his heart full of anticipation. After several hours of hard work, the weaving of the fabric was finally completed. Madame Malkin looked at the result in her hands with satisfaction, and a gratified smile appeared on the corner of her mouth. Next, she cut the fabric into a suitable shape according to Rolling's figure and size, making the most of it and sewing it into a wizard robe. A few days later, Luo Lin came to Madame Malkin's robe shop again. This time, he was particularly excited. As soon as he entered the store, Madame Malkin came to greet him with a warm smile on her face. She took Luo Lin to the fitting room and asked him to change into the newly made robe. Luo Lin excitedly took off his old clothes and carefully put on the magic robe made of unicorn hair. When he walked out of the fitting room, the whole store suddenly became silent. Everyone was attracted by his figure, with envy and amazement in their eyes. The robe fell on Luo Lin's body like moonlight, emitting a soft silver glow. Its texture was light and soft, as if it had no weight. Wow, this robe is absolutely perfect. Rolling turned around in front of the mirror with satisfaction. The robe was as soft and smooth as silk, with a faint silver glow on the surface, as if blending into the moonlight. Its cut was simple and elegant, yet perfectly fitting Luo Lin's slender figure, showing off his upright posture to the fullest. Luo Lin waved the magic wand in his hand, and there seemed to be a brilliant light flowing on his robe. As the magic power continued to flow, the brilliance on the robe became brighter and brighter. Luo Lin muttered, "Origin of water, please protect its splendor so that the raging fire cannot burn it." Luo Lin used the power of the origin of water to exert the power of blessing. Along with a ray of blue light sinking into the robe, a light blue wave pattern faintly appeared on the two cuffs of the robe. However, Luo Lin still felt that something was missing. He recited again, purification rules, the raging fire can no longer burn it. Please let all the filthy things in the world stay away from it. Then, another silver light attached to the robe. At this moment, the robe exuded a sacred luster, as if any mundane adjective would blaspheme its brilliance. The unicorn's hair has very good magical adhesion. I cast a stretching spell on it. It will change with the wearer's body shape. This spell can only be cast on such material. Looking at the magical scene, Madame Malkin added. Thank you so much, Madame Malkin. You have given it new life. Rowling responded gratefully. After the transaction was completed, Llewellyn carefully put away the robe. Wait until an important occasion to wear it and surprise everyone, ha 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 ha, hi. The awarding ceremony was held as scheduled. It was not only widely publicized on the internet, but also reported in the Daily Prophet and the Quibbler. People were talking about Rowling, the youngest recipient of the Order of Merlin, 3rd class, in the wizarding world. At this moment, Rowling arrived in London ahead of schedule. He really didn't want to enter the Ministry of Magic through the toilet again. That experience was terrible. He looked around for other entrances. What are you looking for? Llewellyn. Zyok asked curiously. There's a red telephone booth nearby that leads directly to the Ministry of Magic. Ah, found it. Rowling pointed excitedly at the telephone booth in front and ran towards it as he spoke. Rowling picked up the receiver and dialed the number. Suddenly, the telephone booth slowly descended like an elevator. Rowling stepped into the lobby of the Ministry of Magic again, and what came into view was still the magnificent and blazing fireplaces on both sides and the bustling wizards from various countries who came to do business. Ding! Detection of hosts' arrival at the Ministry of Magic, check in. System sign in. Is there something like a flying car? It's so tiring to fly around every day, Llewellyn asked in his heart. Sign in successfully. The host's needs have been detected. A special reward is a flying carriage. The interior of the carriage has a large space and is made of invisible animal fur. It can be hidden at any time and can be driven automatically. It has now been stored in the system backpack. After hearing the system's voice, Llewellyn showed a satisfied smile on his face. He opened the system backpack and saw a gorgeous flying carriage lying there quietly. The carriage was silver white, with exquisite patterns and designs engraved on the body. The wheels were made of transparent crystal, which looked crystal clear, like a work of art. When Rowling walked into the hall of the Ministry of Magic, everyone's attention was drawn to him. Rowling, wearing a moonlit white robe with dots of silver light flashing, quickly became the focus of all wizards' attention. At this time, the wizards were basically wearing rough robes, mainly black, grey and brown, which looked a bit dull and depressing. In contrast, Rowling's pure white moonlight robe was like a bright star in the night sky, which was eye-catching. The wizards from various countries were talking to each other, discussing the mysterious wizard in low voices. They were curious about Llewellyn's identity, and at the same time they were full of envy and jealousy for his moonlit white robe. But no one dared to talk to him, even though Llewellyn was only a teenager. After all, not everyone could own such a gorgeous and precious robe. Rowling walked straight to the service desk of the Ministry of Magic. He explained his purpose to the staff, and soon, a staff member came over and enthusiastically led Rowling into a spacious auditorium of the Ministry of Magic. As soon as he stepped into the hall, Rowling's eyes were attracted by many familiar faces. The Weasley family, Hogwarts professors Snape and Headmaster Dumbledore were all here, chatting or smiling, and the atmosphere was very harmonious. Rowling sighed in his heart, just as I expected, Headmaster Dumbledore, who is good at winning people's hearts, would not miss such an occasion. In addition, Draco Malfoy and his father Lucius Malfoy were also in the crowd. To Rowling's surprise, Harry, Hermione, and Colin also came here. Llewellyn smiled and greeted everyone. When everyone saw the gorgeous moon-white robe Llewellyn was wearing, they couldn't help but show envy in their eyes. For those wizards with sharp eyes, this robe was obviously made of unicorn hair, and its preciousness was self-evident. Rowling walked up to Harry and asked curiously, "Harry, why are you here too?" Harry's face was filled with joy, and he replied, "Ron told us to keep it a secret, and he wanted to give you a surprise." Llewellyn smiled and said, "Indeed, it's surprising." George Fred was also using a crystal ball to record the entire process of awarding medals. Just when the medal was about to be awarded to Rowling, a surprising piece of news spread among the wizards below. Chapter 116. Sirius escapes from prison. Sirius Black escaped from Azkaban and the heinous Death Eaters escaped from the Dementor's guards. Such discussions also entered Rowling's ears. Dumbledore and the surrounding wizards also gradually turned their gazes from Rowling to Harry Potter. especially Snape, who was even more meaningful. Some of them knew that Sirius Black was Harry Potter's godfather. The one who betrayed the Potter family. The awarding ceremony ended hastily soon. Harry Potter saw everyone's gazes and was filled with doubts. The wizards left one after another, and only Dumbledore came up to him and simply said, "Don't leave home." Then he left in a hurry. Harry Potter stood there, looking at Dumbledore's figure walking away in confusion. He didn't understand why everyone had such a strange look on their faces. At this moment, Ron and Hermione came over. They also learned about Sirius's escape from prison. "Harry, why are they all staring at you?" Hermione asked worriedly. "I don't know either, Rowling, do you know the reason?" Harry turned and asked Rowling, who was walking over. "Oh, maybe because Sirius escaped from prison, they thought he might come looking for you," Rowling said with a deliberately serious expression. But in fact, he was secretly cursing Blake in his heart. Why did this guy run away earlier or later, but at this critical moment? I didn't even have time to promote the internet shopping link, and all these wizards ran away. Why did he come to see me? Harry continued to ask. Because. Rowling hesitated, then said, "I heard that Sirius Black was your parents' secret keeper. It is said that he revealed the location where your parents lived, so Voldemort came to you. As a result, they were killed. And there are rumors that there was a huge explosion at that time, killing many Muggles. But what exactly happened, you need to explore it yourself." Rowland's voice was a little mysterious, which made people wonder. Harry's face turned pale in an instant, he clenched his fists tightly, his eyes flashing with anger and unwillingness. He couldn't accept this fact, and his heart was full of resentment towards Sirius Black. However, Rowling did not give too much explanation, just let Harry find the answer himself. Hermione seemed to sense that there was something else behind Rowling's words. In the following days, Harry Potter returned to his aunt's house. However, when Harry's uncle's sister came to visit and insulted Harry's parents, Harry's anger turned her into a huge balloon. At the same time, Rowling sat in the cabin, listening attentively to the news from Harry's crystal ball. It did not show the slightest surprise or worry, as if everything was expected. Rowling knew that things were still developing as planned, and Harry was gradually growing up. Because Sirius Black would not hurt Harry Potter, Rowling did not intend to interfere too much. Only after experiencing pain and challenges could Harry truly become a powerful wizard. "Rowling, I ran away from home and am now at the Broken Axe. Can I stay at your house until school starts?" Harry sent the message carefully. Rowling, who was studying the Tree of Life, suddenly saw a message from Harry. Rowling frowned, feeling a little conflicted. He wanted to refuse. After all, in the past year, he had intentionally or unintentionally not approached Harry, hoping that he could have more contact with Hermione Granger. He felt like he was about to become straight. However, now Harry suddenly sent him such a message. Was he lacking a sense of security again? Rowling sighed helplessly. Moreover, Harry knew that only the house elves and the little ones lived in Rowling's house. If they moved in, what if they suddenly sleepwalked in the middle of the night? Rowling felt more and more that it was not right. He was still a young man, how could he lose his innocence like this? At this moment, an idea suddenly flashed through Rowling's mind. His eyes lit up and the corners of his mouth rose slightly. "Oh, Harry, aren't you in Diagon Alley? I just wanted to open a Rowling Magic Crystal Ball store there. I will probably stay in Diagon Alley more often until school starts," Rowling replied cleverly. In fact, he did have such a plan and had thought about it before, but he had never put it into action. However, when Harry heard the news, he secretly thought to himself, Rowling must have decided to open a shop in Diagon Alley just to keep him company. After all, why did he wait until he ran away from home to open the shop? Thinking of this, Harry couldn't help but feel very happy and no longer depressed about being homeless. He was extremely excited. The next morning, Rowling arrived at Diagon Alley early and began looking for a suitable shop. When Harry learned of Rowling's arrival, he quickly rushed to his side. "Good morning, Harry. I'm just about to rent a shop." Rowling greeted Harry warmly. In fact, Rowling knew very well that in 2 years, the Death Eaters would destroy Diagon Alley. Therefore, it was not cost-effective to buy a shop, and it would be more practical to rent one. However, Harry misunderstood what Rowling meant. To him, Rowling seemed to be asking for his opinion on the choice of store. Harry's cheeks flushed slightly, and he whispered shyly, "Good morning, Rowling. I just saw a shop for rent opposite the ice cream shop in front. Maybe we can go and have a look. And, when we are free, we can go for ice cream together." Let's go have ice cream together." Rowling looked at Harry, who suddenly blushed, with a puzzled look on his face, and muttered to himself, "What on earth is this little brat thinking about? Okay, let's choose that place. I like eating ice cream." Suddenly Xiao Kei came out and said loudly. "Okay, let's go and take a look," Luo Lin said speechlessly, looking at Xiaoke. The two came to a shop in Diagon Alley, and Rowling looked at the shop carefully. The shop was not small, with 2 floors in total, and the decoration style was unique, giving people a comfortable feeling. Luo Lin was very satisfied with the environment and location of the store, so he asked about the rent. When he learned that he only had to pay 30 gold galleons per month, Luo Lin decided to rent the store without hesitation. Rowling wants to transform the upstairs of the store into a bedroom, and use the downstairs as a store. Rowling arranged the furnishings in the store according to his own preferences to be similar to Ollivander's wand shop, but different. There is also a long table in the middle of the store as a customer experience display. Chapter 117. Opening Business. In other places, Luo Lin placed many tropical flowers and plants, which are not only beautiful but also emit charming fragrance. As soon as customers enter the store, they can feel a fresh breath, as if they are in nature. Harry saw Rowling constantly taking out huge flowers from a card. These flowers were taller than people, colorful and extremely beautiful. He was very curious. He couldn't help but wonder, what kind of magic is this? How can so many beautiful flowers appear? In order to create a unique store, Luo Lin carefully designed and produced a large number of crystal balls. These crystal balls are no longer limited to displaying simple pictures, but use advanced virtual projection technology to present realistic three-dimensional images. In addition, the colors of the crystal balls have become rich and colorful, including deep blue, fiery red, mysterious lavender, etc. Each crystal ball shows its unique charm. Rowling decided to create an eye-catching store. He designed and built a huge glazed window so that passers-by could see the exquisite furnishings inside the store at a glance. Not only that, he also carefully made a large crystal ball and placed it in a prominent position, through which he continuously played introduction advertisements and demonstrated new features, among which the convenience and advantages of online shopping were highlighted. After spending a few days in busy preparation, Rowling went to the Ministry of Magic to open the Flu network. When the news reached George and Fred, they immediately put down their work and rushed to help. After Bill Weasley quit his job, he was also hired by Rowling as the store manager. At the same time, the opening advertisements were being promoted on the internet. In order to attract more customers, Rowling launched an installment policy of up to 2 years. This policy made it possible for almost any wizard to purchase these products. The interest rate was not high. An ordinary crystal ball only cost 50 gold galleons. If you choose to pay in installments over 2 years, you only need to pay 60 gold galleons in total, less than 3 gold galleons per month. Such preferential policies undoubtedly increased the desire of wizards to buy. After everything was ready, the store finally had a grand opening ceremony. On that day, a large number of wizard families flocked to Diagon Alley, and people were full of expectations for this new magical item. At this moment, the crystal ball has become an indispensable product for every family, and the sales scene is extremely hot. The enthusiasm of wizards even exceeded the scene when Hogwarts opened. During this time, Rowling discovered that a big dog often appeared near the store. With his keen perception, Rowling recognized the big dog as Sirius Black at a glance. Sirius's magic fluctuations could not escape Rowling's elemental eyes. However, Rowling was not disgusted by Sirius's presence and would even feed him some food from time to time. In contrast, Harry did not notice the existence of the big dog and only treated it as an ordinary stray dog. Since their animagus forms were not registered with the Ministry of Magic, almost no one knew about this. Busy times are always short, and in the blink of an eye it is a new school year. Rowling and Harry are about to start their school life. At the same time, all the little wizards came to Diagon Alley one after another to buy the things they needed for the new semester. On this day, Ron, Fred, George, and Hermione Granger came to Rowling's store together. They discussed plans for the new semester and the items they were going to buy, full of anticipation and excitement. "Harry, can you come over and talk?" Arthur Weasley called out to Harry. When Harry Potter heard Arthur Weasley's voice, he stopped and turned to walk towards him. The two walked to a quiet corner and started talking. "Harry, the news I want to tell you now is strongly opposed by the Ministry of Magic, but I think it is necessary for you to know the truth. Because you are in danger now, your life is in danger," Arthur Weasley said solemnly. A trace of doubt flashed across Harry Potter's eyes, but he immediately calmed down and answered firmly, "Is it related to Sirius Sirius Black?" Arthur Weasley was stunned. He didn't expect Harry to know about Sirius. He was silent for a while before he slowly said, "How much do you know about Sirius?" Harry Potter took a deep breath, a little emotional. "He escaped from Azkaban. Rowling told me that he betrayed my parents, causing them to be killed by Voldemort. Moreover, he also killed many innocent people." After saying this, Harry Potter clenched his fists tightly, as if trying to suppress his inner anger. His eyes flashed with anger, and he was obviously full of resentment towards Sirius. Arthur Weasley looked at Harry Potter, sighed, and said earnestly, "Harry, I understand how you feel, but some things may be more serious than you think." He patted Harry Potter's shoulder and comforted him, "We need to stay calm so that we can find a solution to the problem. Believe me, everything will be fine." Harry Potter nodded, trying to calm himself. "Yes. Rowling is trustworthy. But I'm afraid there is something he doesn't know. 13 years ago, when you stopped the mysterious man, Black lost everything, but until today, he is still loyal. He believes that it is you who stopped his master from returning. He escaped from Azkaban for this, to find you," Arthur said seriously. "And then kill me," Harry replied coldly. "Harry, no matter what you hear, don't go to Black." Arthur became more serious. "Mr. Weasley, why should I go to find Black?" Harry asked puzzledly. But Arthur Weasley kept silent. "Why do you want to go find Sirius? Isn't it because he is your godfather?" Rowling was standing next to them and heard their conversation clearly, while he was secretly complaining in his heart. Peter Pettigrew, he played Sirius around, betrayed Harry's parents and faked his own death to get away with it. It's really hard to let Sirius take the blame. How stupid. Is he hiding in Azkaban to atone for his guilt towards Harry's parents? Even Lupin doesn't know the truth. Lupin probably went to Hogwarts to apply for the professorship because he saw Sirius escape from prison and was afraid that he would hurt Harry. Rowling thought to himself. With a clear whistle, the Hogwarts Express slowly pulled into King's Cross Station. Just as Rowling and the Big Three boarded the train, Mrs. Weasley's anxious voice rang out, "Ron, your pet." Rowling looked back and saw Mrs. Weasley holding the big rat Scabbers in her hand. "Is Peter the dwarf going to run away?" Rowling looked at the big rat meaningfully. Rowling then walked in the corridor of the train, his eyes sweeping through the compartments with closed doors. When he came to a compartment, he found a covered wizard in it. Rowling immediately cast his eyes on his luggage cart, and it was indeed written Remus Lupin. Chapter 118, Ice and Blizzard. "Harry, we can only stay here. It seems that there are no other empty boxes." Rowling decided to enter this box without hesitation. After all, the person in front of him was Remus Lupin, who played a key role in Harry's academic growth. From the stuttering Quirrell in the first grade to the bragging King Lockhart in the second grade, Lupin became Harry's mentor and helpful friend. He not only taught him how to cast the Expediens Patronus spell, but also taught him a lot of knowledge about magical creatures. Who is this person? Ron noticed this strange man at a glance after entering the box. He frowned and asked in confusion. "James Lupin," Hermione replied confidently. "How do you know everything?" Ron opened his mouth in surprise and asked questioningly. "It's written on the suitcase," Hermione explained helplessly, pointing to the label on the luggage rack, on which Lupin's name was clearly written. "Oh." Ron nodded awkwardly, but he quickly shifted his attention to Lupin. "Then what happened to him? Is he dead?" "He's motionless." As he spoke, he nervously approached Lupin, as if he wanted to confirm. Rowling looked at Ron speechlessly. Yesterday was a full moon night, Lupin must have turned into a werewolf again, and he must have gone through a painful night. Harry saw that Lupin was asleep, so he told Hermione, Ron, and Rowling what he had learned from Arthur Weasley. Rowling didn't take it seriously, after all, he already knew all this, but Hermione and Ron were still shocked. At this moment, the train, which was originally traveling at high speed, suddenly made a sharp braking sound, and then the whole train shook violently. Rowling was sitting in the box. He felt something was wrong and immediately looked out the window. Outside the window, he saw a dense swarm of Dementors floating in the air, like a black cloud covering the whole world. A piercing cold wind suddenly swept past, chilling Harry and the others. Xiao Ke also flew out of the luggage and hugged Luo Lin's neck tightly. Luo Lin, there is the scent of the Clow cards. Luo Lin frowned, he was keenly aware that this strange force came from outside the car. Stay here and don't move. I'll go check out the situation. After giving the instructions, Luo Lin quickly stood up, opened the door of the box and walked out. Harry wanted to stop him, but Rowling moved too fast and disappeared from his sight in the blink of an eye. Don't worry, Harry, Rowling will take care of it, Hermione comforted. At this time, Rowling walked out of the compartment and came to the corridor of the train. The corridor was crowded with passengers, who looked at everything in front of them in horror. The Dementors were checking the compartments one by one, looking for something. When they found Luo Lin, their eyes flashed with greed, as if they had found delicious prey. They immediately rushed towards Luo Lin and tried to suck his soul. However, Rowling was dismissive. He smiled lightly, a faint purifying power flashed in his hand, and then he slapped the Dementor that rushed over and sent it flying. Luo Lin did not delay any longer and quickly walked out of the train. As expected, he saw that the train had stopped on a bridge. He was surprised to find that the train was frozen. Luo Lin hurriedly looked down and saw that a huge lake under the bridge was also frozen. Luo Lin, this is a frozen Clow card. Xiao Ke keenly noticed the abnormality. Luo Lin immediately spread his wings, flew quickly into the lake, and hovered steadily in the air. However, at this moment, huge ice cones suddenly appeared on the ice surface, and they attacked Luo Lin at an alarming speed. Luo Lin wanted to summon the fire spirit, but was interrupted. In desperation, he could only quickly flee the scene. At the same time, heavy snow began to fall from the sky. Luo Lin wondered in his heart, it's September now, why is it snowing? Has Dou-Yi appeared again? But he soon realized that this idea was too ridiculous, so he quickly dismissed the idea and turned to look up at the sky. It's the snow Clow card. Xiao Ke explained as he looked at the sudden heavy snow. Luo Lin also felt that the two abilities were superimposed on each other, and his wings seemed to be slowly freezing. Luo Lin flew up to the sky quickly, and a beautiful girl was dancing. As she moved, the blizzard kept increasing. However, to Rowling's surprise, the girl did not attack him like the other Clow cards. Instead, she looked at him with a smile, took his hand, and danced a gorgeous waltz in the sky. Xiao Ke watched the scene quietly from the side and thought, the snow elf is really a gentler guy than the tree elf. As the blizzard stopped, the snow elf gracefully let go of Rowling's hand, then automatically turned back into a Clow card and flew back into Rowling's hand like a light butterfly. She recognizes your magic power, and this is her way of showing you that the power of magical elements is interdependent and complementary. Xiao Ke explained while looking at the blushing Rowling. Rowling held the snow Clow card tightly in his hand and looked at the ground. The Hogwarts Express was covered with thick snow. He suddenly thought to himself, as expected, the gentler the woman, the more ruthless she is. Luo Lin took a deep breath to calm himself down. Then, he flew downwards, muttering an ancient and mysterious spell, Elf of Fire, please obey my call and use the blazing flames to revive the earth. Melt the snow and melt the glaciers. As the spell was chanted, a dazzling light burst out from Luo Lin's body. Then, a magic circle of light appeared under his feet, like a shining star. The magic circle expanded rapidly as he moved. In the center of the magic circle, the fire spirit was like a blazing flame. It danced with its body, and the temperature of the flame rose rapidly. Wherever it went, the snow melted and turned into rising water vapor. Luo Lin felt the endless flow of magic in his body and established a close connection with the fire spirits. He directed the flames to move forward, burning the snow along the way and opening up a clear path. The flames flowed along the terrain and eventually gathered into a huge torrent, rushing towards the lake. At this time, the frozen Clow card also showed up. It was a giant wolf with a huge body of ice being bound by the fire spirit. It struggled hard, but couldn't break free from the fire spirit's bondage. Clow card, return to your original form. Llewellyn raised the sealing staff and tapped it gently. As he moved, the ice wolf gradually lost its resistance and was finally successfully sealed in the card by Llewellyn. At this moment, the little wizards in the carriage looked in amazement at the sudden appearance of the snow-covered box, and the blazing fire melting it. They all began to look for the mysterious wizard with such powerful power. However, due to the snow blocking their vision, they could not see the situation outside. When the snow slowly melted, Llewellyn had already quietly appeared on the lake below. Because Harry fainted, Lupin used the Patronus to drive the Dementors out of the carriage. Chapter 119, Musician Professor Flitwick. As soon as Rowling returned to the carriage, he saw Harry lying on the seat after fainting. At this time, Ron and Hermione looked at Harry with worry. "Rowling, you are finally back." Harry was almost sucked away by the Dementors. Fortunately, Mr. Lupin drove away the Dementors. He is now negotiating with them. Hermione roughly recounted what had just happened. Hermione did not ask about the strange phenomenon outside just now. It seemed that Rowling had many secrets. After Rowling's brief response, he turned his gaze to Harry, who looked very pale and frowned as if he was having a nightmare. Rowling opened the Eye of Elements and looked at Harry, who seemed to be in a state of separation from his soul. This was probably due to the Dementors sucking his soul away, and also due to the shock. Rowling took out an intermediate soul core from his space ring, which was the one he had obtained in the Chamber of Secrets before. This time, he gently waved his wand, extracted a ray of soul energy from the intermediate soul core, and carefully injected it into Harry's body, without having to make it as complicated as Ginny Weasley's resurrection. As the soul energy was injected, Harry's face turned from pale to ruddy, and his breathing became steady. Finally, Harry slowly opened his eyes, with a hint of confusion in his eyes, but soon regained clarity. Ron and Hermione watched Rowling perform magic on Harry, their hearts full of curiosity. They had never seen such a treatment before, and they couldn't help but admire Rowling's ability. As Harry gradually regained consciousness, they also showed expressions of surprise on their faces. "How do you feel, Harry?" Ron asked with concern, worry in his eyes. Harry rubbed his head and tried to recall what had just happened. "I'm much better, thank you. I seemed to have had a terrible dream just now." Ron and Hermione both breathed a sigh of relief when they heard Harry's words. "That's great. But it's all thanks to Rowling that you woke up so quickly. His treatment is amazing." At this moment, Lupin walked back into the carriage. He carefully checked Harry's condition. Then, he took out a piece of chocolate from his pocket and handed it to Harry. "Eat it, child. It will make you feel better," said Lupin gently. Harry took the chocolate and looked at Lupin gratefully. He took a bite of the chocolate and immediately felt a warm power spread throughout his body. "Thank you, Mr. Lupin," said Harry gratefully. Lupin smiled and replied, "You're welcome, Harry. I'm glad I could help you." Then he introduced himself to everyone. "My name is James Lupin, and I'm the new Professor of Defense Against the Dark Arts at Hogwarts." Ron and Hermione were very surprised and excited to hear the news. They welcomed Lupin and introduced themselves. Rowling smiled and said, "Hello, Professor Lupin. I am Rowling. Thank you for your guidance. My name is Ron, and I'm from Gryffindor House. I'm Hermione Granger, and I'm glad to have you as our teacher to teach us defense against the dark arts. The train will arrive at Hogwarts soon, and everything will be waiting for you at school. I will report what happens here to Headmaster Dumbledore," said Lupin. As soon as Rowling stepped out of the train, he was acutely aware of the strangeness of the surrounding environment. A bone-chilling chill hit him. Although there was only one bright moon hanging high in the sky, under the cold moonlight, he could still clearly see countless Dementors wandering in the air, covering the entire Hogwarts. Harry obviously noticed these Dementors. He held Rowling's robe tightly and followed Rowling closely, not daring to relax at all. Rowling felt a strange pulling sensation on his robe. He looked back and found Harry holding on to the corner of his clothes tightly, looking around nervously. "Oh, it seems that little Harry is really scared." Rowling sighed to himself. "Harry, don't be too nervous, relax. With the Professor and I here, the Dementors won't come near you anymore." Rowling gently comforted the 13-year-old boy, his tone full of tenderness and concern. At the same time, he silently mobilized the purifying power in his body. Suddenly, a faint light appeared around Rowling, shining like stars. It not only dispelled the darkness around him, but also gradually dispelled the fear and uneasiness in the hearts of many little wizards. The young wizards who gathered around felt much more secure. Draco followed behind, staring at Harry Potter furtively, muttering to himself, "This inherently evil Harry Potter only knows how to pester Rowling." However, despite his dissatisfaction, Draco slowly approached the crowd. After all, he also longed for light and warmth, especially in this dark night full of Dementors. The young wizards who were far away also followed suit and moved closer to Rowling, as if this would make them feel warmer. Harry Potter, who was standing by, looked at the dazzling light emanating from Rowling and felt the magic power around him speeding up, slowly dispelling the uneasiness in his heart. Rowling noticed the actions of the young wizards, but did not stop them from approaching. Instead, he made the light on his body even brighter and more shining. The Dementors that were originally wandering around wanted to come over to inspect, but were frightened by the shining light and quickly fled. They did not dare to approach the light, as if it would melt them away, and avoided the group of young wizards from a distance. In the auditorium, after all the young wizards took their seats after the sorting, the whole hall seemed particularly lively with chattering sounds one after another. Professor Flitwick and his ensemble walked gracefully onto the front stage. Rowling sat at the Gryffindor table, full of expectations. If the young wizards were asked who was the best professor at Hogwarts, they might have some opinions, but if they were asked who was the music conductor at Hogwarts, it would undoubtedly be Professor Flitwick. When Professor Flitwick was ready, he nodded slightly, indicating that he could start playing. Professor McGonagall stood up and introduced loudly, "The next piece of music is Double Trouble, performed by Professor Flitwick and the young wizards." As she finished speaking, a burst of music suddenly sounded. This music was like a passionate wave, sweeping the entire auditorium. Its melody was sometimes passionate and high-pitched, and sometimes gentle and melodious, making people intoxicated. The singers performed every note to the fullest. Double, double toilet and trouble. Fire burn, and cauldron bubble. Double, double toilet and trouble. Something wicked this way. Chapter 120. Healing Power. As the sincere emotions and pure singing of the little wizards floated in the auditorium, Llewellyn felt as if there were waves in his body, and the power of purification also resonated with it. Llewellyn closed his eyes and quietly felt it. Sincere emotions will make music rich in power. This is the power of joy. At this time, Llewellyn felt that the power of purification became stronger. The power of purification requires a pure soul, and happiness is also pure. The little wizard's soul is pure and his emotions are sincere, so the magic of emotions can resonate with the power of purification. Rowling murmured to himself. He seemed to see a whole new world, a magical realm interwoven with music and emotions. This discovery excited Llewellyn, and he realized that through his understanding of music and emotions, he could further enhance his power of purification. Is the illusory healing power also in music? Healing is not limited to physical recovery, but also to the comfort of the soul. For those whose hearts are severely wounded and in pain, magic potions can heal the damage to the body, but they cannot redeem the heart. The Dementors in the sky seemed to be the carriers of all the helplessness, despair, loneliness, fear, and anxiety in the world. They were like shadows in the darkness, and when people encountered them, they would shroud their hearts and make it impossible to escape. All this is due to the evil dark wizard, Aechthias. He lived in the 15th century and was notorious for his in-depth research and abuse of dark magic. This dark wizard once lived on the island of Azkaban and was immersed in various dark magic experiments all day long. Not only that, he also deliberately lured passing Muggle crew members onto the island, imprisoned them and tortured them. Under endless torture, these innocent Muggles were aroused to the extreme of fear, loneliness, and helplessness, and eventually died in despair. Acrisus used these people's desperate souls to cast evil black magic and created Dementors. These Dementors were born in despair, so their desire for happiness is extremely strong. At the same time, because their souls have been tainted, they begin to suck the pure souls of others to satisfy their twisted desires. It is because of this that they become the nightmare of the world, bringing endless fear and pain to people. When encountering Dementors, all the pain in the body will be released, and it feels like the soul has been sucked out, plunging people into endless darkness and fear. However, the only way to defeat these terrible creatures is to cast the ancient Patronus spell, Expediens Patronus. This ancient spell requires great magic and a pure heart to cast, which can summon a guardian beast to protect oneself from dementors. Those evil dark wizards, because their hearts are full of malice and darkness, cannot master this magical magic. Only people with a kind heart and pure soul can cast the patroness charm. So, you can fully trust those who can summon the patroness, because they must be kind in their hearts. Llewellyn couldn't help but think of the experiences in his previous life. Those desperate moments seemed to be still vivid in his mind. It was the heart-wrenching pain of losing a lover, the sadness and loss of having to face separation when graduating, and the thought of ending it all. But in the end, what can erase these pains is not only the gradual passage of time, but also the most sincere emotions in the songs. Every song is a story, and every lyric is a resonance, which makes people feel each other's warmth and strength. This is the power of healing, which is like the sun penetrating the clouds and illuminating the dark corners deep in people's hearts. Rowling opened his eyes. He knew that sometimes a wizard's sadness often could not resonate with others and might even backfire. At this moment, Harry was still immersed in the fear of being attacked by dementors on the train. Rowling waved his wand, like an excellent conductor, guiding the singing in the auditorium. As Rowling's magic surged, the singing turned into cheerful notes, flowing out like a clear spring, converging towards Harry. These notes were as warm as sunshine, dispelling the haze and darkness deep in Harry's heart. Harry's eyes widened, and gradually became clear and bright. He seemed to feel a force that filled him with courage and hope. His body began to tremble slightly, and the fear in his heart gradually dissipated, replaced by an inexplicable impulse. The beautiful music lingered in his ears, making him feel extremely happy and joyful. All those wonderful memories of the past came to his mind and surrounded him tightly. He was immersed in this joyful atmosphere and completely forgot the pain and sorrow before. Harry stared at Rowling blankly, his face filled with a happy smile. Rowling responded with a gentle smile, his eyes revealing his concern for Harry. Although such a small incident happened in Gryffindor, it did not attract the attention of other young wizards. They were still busy with their own things and were not disturbed too much. However, some sharp professors noticed this abnormal situation, and their eyes showed surprise and confusion. Is this a new field of magic? Llewellyn looked at the little wizards around him at this time, their faces were filled with innocent smiles. The hearts of these new little wizards were as transparent as crystal, and their happiness and kindness infected everyone. A new school year, welcome back to Hogwarts. Headmaster Dumbledore walked up to the podium as the music stopped and said excitedly, at the beginning of this new semester, we welcome 2 new teachers who will lead us to explore more mysterious magical fields. First of all, let us warmly welcome the new Defense Against the Dark Arts professor, Mr. James Lupin. He has rich experience and excellent knowledge, and I believe he will become a good teacher and helpful friend to the students. At the same time, we also welcome the new Professor of Care of Magical Creatures, Mr. Rugal Hagrid. He has a deep understanding of magical creatures, and we look forward to him bringing us more secrets about magical creatures. Then, Headmaster Dumbledore said solemnly, finally, according to the request of the Ministry of Magic, there is a disturbing news that needs to be told to everyone. The Soul Eater outside will guard every entrance to Hogwarts until Sirius Black is captured. However, I want to remind you that you must be extra careful. Because Dementors cannot distinguish between good and evil, whether it is prey or people who stand in their way, they will attack mercilessly. So, please don't give them any reason to hurt you. After saying that, Headmaster Dumbledore glanced at the whole room to make sure that every student heard his warning. Chapter 121. The students in the audience were talking to each other, obviously shocked and worried about the news. Headmaster Dumbledore's voice sounded again, students, don't be afraid. As long as we unite and abide by the rules, we can get through this difficult time. At the same time, we must trust the school's security measures. We will do our best to protect everyone's safety. Now, let's enjoy the dinner. As Headmaster Dumbledore finished speaking, warm applause broke out from the audience. At this time, Harry suddenly came over and asked curiously, Rowling, we are already in the 3rd grade. We need to take at least 2 courses. Have you decided which 2 courses to choose? Llewellyn smiled and nodded, saying, well, I have decided. I plan to take elective courses in divination, alchemy, and ancient runes. I think I may have some talent in divination, and I have always been interested in alchemy. In addition, ancient runes are also a very important subject. It contains powerful ancient magical power. If you want to improve your strength, learning ancient runes is essential. After hearing this, Harry frowned and asked in confusion, Rowling, why don't you take protection of magical creatures? That's Professor Hagrid's course. Rowling smiled helplessly and explained, actually, I am also looking forward to Professor Hagrid's class, but due to schedule reasons, my other courses conflict with it, so I can only choose one of the two. Okay, Rowling. I've chosen divination and care of magical creatures, but Hermione seems to have chosen all the subjects. I don't know how she will attend the classes. Harry asked in confusion. Yes, it is indeed curious. Rowling replied. He already had the answer in his mind. It should be that Professor McGonagall lent Hermione the time turner after communicating with her. This item seems to touch the law of time just like the time cards. However, the difference is that the time turner can only allow a few people to go back in time, while the time cards can repeat time. If the time cards can be sealed, then we can study time magic in depth. Hermione heard the conversation between Harry and Rowling and explained with a smile, there are always some ways, but Professor McGonagall asked me not to tell anyone. I'm very sorry. It's okay, Hermione, we're just curious, Harry explained hurriedly. After the dinner, Llewellyn dragged his tired body back to the dormitory. He was about to lie down and rest for a while, but suddenly heard a slight knock on the door. Llewellyn was a little confused about who would come to see him at this time. He waved his right hand lightly, and the magic power of wind instantly emerged. As the magic power flowed, the door slowly opened, making a low sound. There was a man standing outside the door. It was Neville Longbottom. He had a dull look on his face, and his eyes revealed a hint of confusion and uneasiness. He stood blankly at the door, his left hand still in the posture of knocking on the door, as if he was frozen in that moment. Neville, why are you here? Rowling looked at Neville with a puzzled look on his face. He knew that Neville was always timid and rarely took the initiative to look for others. This time he suddenly came to him, he must have encountered something. Neville took a deep breath and tried to calm himself down. He stammered, Rowling, I just saw you perform magic in the hall and made Harry happy all of a sudden. I think you are amazing. Rowling smiled slightly, thinking that Neville came to ask for advice on magic. He was about to answer, but Neville continued, I actually have something I want to ask you for help with. My parents are now living in St. Mungo's Hospital. Every time I visit them, they look very painful. I want to ask you, can you use that kind of magic to relieve their pain? Neville lowered his head, his eyes slightly red, and continued in a hoarse voice, they have been tortured by the Death Eaters into this state. They have lost consciousness and cannot take care of themselves. The doctors said that this is an incurable disease and can only be maintained by drugs. But I really want to do something to help them, even if it is just to make them a little more comfortable. Seeing Rowling hesitate, Neville raised his head and said eagerly, as long as it can make my parents healthy again, I am willing to. I am willing to be like Malfoy's follower. When Rowling hesitated, he was actually thinking about how to help Neville's parents. If he could, Rowling would not stand idly by. When Neville added, he came back to his senses, Neville, you don't have to do this. I'm thinking about when to go to St. Mungo's Hospital, because I need to know the condition of your parents in person. How about this weekend? After hearing this, Neville's eyes flashed with gratitude and he quickly nodded in agreement. Rowling continued, Neville, don't be too sad. I lost my family before, and I understand how you feel. But please believe that everything will get better slowly. Now, go to bed early, because you still have classes tomorrow. Neville looked at Rowling gratefully and said, okay, there will be no problem over the weekend. Thank you, Rowling. I will write to tell Grandma about this. I'm sorry to remind you of the sad past. Rowling smiled and replied, it's okay, Neville. We all have pain in the past, but life must go on. Believe me, everything will be fine. Now have a good rest, tomorrow is a brand new day. After that, he patted Neville's shoulder gently. The next day, sunlight shone through the windows of Hogwarts Castle into the corridor, and Rowling walked briskly into the divination class. Although he already had the ability to divination awarded by the rules of fate, for this mysterious subject, the diverse knowledge in his mind needed to be sorted out. In the classroom, young wizards arrived one after another, looking forward to the new day's classes. And the mysterious Professor Trelawney also appeared on time, and she began today's speech passionately. Students, today we are going to learn tea divination. Professor Trelawney's voice echoed in the classroom, and her eyes seemed to penetrate the hearts of every student. Then, she walked to Ron and motioned him to pick up the teacup for divination. Ron nervously picked up Harry's teacup, flipping through the book and describing the pattern he saw in gibberish. However, just as Trelawney listened carefully to Ron's prediction, she suddenly found something strange. She hurried forward, looked closely at Harry's teacup, and then cried out in astonishment, "This is a bad sign. The big black dog symbolizes the dark forces in the wizarding world. It foreshadows death. Mr. Harry, you will face the threat of death." The whole classroom seemed to be drained of sound and instantly fell into a dead silence. Everyone's eyes were focused on Harry, as if time had frozen. Harry's face gradually turned pale under the gaze of everyone, and an inexplicable fear surged in his heart. However, in this tense atmosphere, Llewellyn unexpectedly remained calm. He frowned slightly and looked at everything happening in front of him with sharp eyes. If that black dog is Sirius Black, then he will indeed die in 2 years. And Harry, without the power of the Resurrection Stone, will probably face the same fate. Rowling thought to himself. It seems that this seemingly random but incoherent way of prediction can make people more suspicious of the fortune-teller's ability. This kind of haphazard words seem to make people think that the fortune-teller is just a liar rather than a person who truly has the ability to predict. Chapter 122. Ancient Magic. After class, Harry was still immersed in the prophecy of death. He looked at Rowling, who seemed to know everything, his eyes full of helplessness and confusion. Rowling saw through his thoughts at a glance and smiled, "Don't worry too much, Harry. A prophecy does not necessarily mean that it will happen. It is just a possibility. Moreover, even in the face of the threat of death, it does not mean that you have no chance to change your fate." Harry nodded slightly, but the fear in his heart had not completely dissipated. When you have many choices in life, you are destined to lose a lot if you are not strong enough. Harry, when you are really facing death, powerful magic will give you more choices. Rowling continued. Harry nodded, knowing that Rowling was right. At the same time, he secretly prayed that the prophecy of death would not come true. "Rowling, can you teach me the Patronus charm?" Harry suddenly said seriously. Hearing this, Rowling scratched his head and smiled awkwardly, I'm not very good at teaching. In fact, I learned the Patronus charm from Professor Snape." After that, he shrugged helplessly. Rowling doesn't really want to be Harry Potter's nanny. Although he will not sit idly by when it comes to things within his ability, it is more appropriate to leave teaching work like this to the professor. After hearing this, Harry showed a trace of fear on his face and shook his head repeatedly. "Snape? I think I'd better forget it." Obviously, Professor Snape's strictness left a deep shadow on him. Seeing Harry's reaction, Rowling secretly smiled in his heart. He comforted him, "Oh, Harry. We should call him Professor Snape. It is necessary to maintain the minimum respect for professors. If you don't want to ask him for help, you can go to Professor Lupin for help. Remember those Dementors who attacked you on the train? They were driven away by Professor Lupin." Harry said gratefully, "Okay, I got it. Thank you, Rowling." He knew in his heart that no matter what difficulties he encountered, as long as he found Rowling, he would always get satisfactory answers and help. "You're welcome, Harry. I'm going to my runes class. Bye," Rowling said with a smile. As expected, Rowling saw Hermione Granger rushing over during the runes class. "Hello, little wizards. Please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Bathsheba Buren, and I am your ancient runes professor. Next, let us explore the mysterious runes and the ancient magical world together," he said to the students with a smile. In the distant past, magic wands did not exist in the wizarding system from the beginning. The magic wand, as a tool to guide the wizard's magic power, was invented later. Before that, many wizards had difficulty controlling their own power, so those famous wizards must have very powerful magic. As time went by, runes came into being and became a concrete representation of ancient magic. Whether it was carving rune arrays or casting powerful ancient magic, runes were an indispensable element. The professor's voice was deep and magnetic, as if carrying a mysterious power that attracted the students' attention. Today, however, ancient magic is a little-known yet extremely powerful form of magic. It is shrouded in mystery and has all but disappeared from the wizarding world. Those who can sense and manipulate ancient magic are viewed as beings of extraordinary abilities. Even the other professors at Hogwarts only know a little about this mysterious magic. Bathsheba Buren's eyes sparkled with excitement, as if she was looking forward to the students' exploration of this field. The classroom was silent as the students listened attentively to the explanation of the mysterious ancient runes. They were deeply attracted by this strange yet fascinating topic and could not wait to uncover the mystery of ancient magic. Professor Buren propped his chin up with his hand and fell into deep thought. Then he continued, "Ancient magic is a very special and mysterious existence. It is obviously different from the magic used by modern wizards. This kind of magic is not achieved by releasing one's own magic power, but comes from the world itself and the nature of reality associated with it." His voice was full of reverence, as if he were revealing a deep secret. He then added, "The ancient magic was performed in a more mysterious way. It seemed to resonate with the forces of nature and use them in a clever way to produce more magical effects and powerful energy." Professor Buren's eyes became more profound. Ancient magic has a long history and remains mysterious to this day. However, to master this magic, you need to have a deeper understanding of it, and you also need to be proficient in complex spells and magic gestures. Ancient magic is often closely linked to ancient objects or specific locations, and therefore requires a fairly high level of knowledge and expertise. Only those who can truly harness this power can keenly perceive the mysteries within. But it is worth mentioning that almost all known wizards who can use ancient magic graduated from Hogwarts. Because of this, there must be a close connection between ancient magic and Hogwarts. When Llewellyn heard this, he couldn't help but mutter to himself, "Isn't there a connection? I took away part of the water essence contained in the Black Lake." The professor looked at the young wizards, who were so surprised that their jaws could not close, and nodded with satisfaction. He then continued, "In fact, Hogwarts Castle itself was built by ancient magic, which makes it an ancient fortress full of mystery. This may be one of the reasons why ancient magic can be connected to Hogwarts students through it." Finally, Professor Buren paused and concluded, "As for the origin theory of ancient magic, although we are not completely sure yet, based on the information we have so far, ancient magic has always existed in the world and is closely connected with the forces of nature and the universe. It can even be said that ancient magic exerted its tremendous power by utilizing the power of nature." When Rowling heard this, he fell into deep thought. He had guessed it before. Rowling discovered that the power of ancient magic had a striking similarity to the same basic physical theory in the Muggle world. Whether it is gravity, electromagnetic force, or strong and weak interactions, these are all concepts that modern science is familiar with. This is also the basic theory that constitutes the Muggle world. However, Muggles do not have magic power, so their use of them is still very simple. In ancient magic, the same property can also be used. The forbidden blazing spell that he invented was based on the understanding and application of this cosmic energy. This spell is not only a powerful means of attack, but also a spell to communicate with the power of nature. It can guide natural energy and release tremendous power. Chapter 123. Alchemy and Transfiguration. But ancient magic is not something that everyone can master. Only a small number of wizards can harness and guide this cosmic energy or cosmic language. They must have strong magic power to bear and use this power. For most people, ancient magic is still a mysterious and distant field. They can only use it based on the carving of runes. Similarly, the Bagong technique that I learned in China is to communicate with the power of the stars. Whether it is magic or sorcery, they will lead to the same result. Llewellyn thought to himself, "I have a water spirit body, which is no longer an ordinary body. Naturally, I can better withstand the power of the elements in nature." In contrast, if young wizards want to master these powers, they can only grow stronger through continuous growth and repeated magical baptisms. Perhaps only wizards like Dumbledore can gradually touch the mystery of natural power. After the professor elaborated on the deep connection between runes and ancient magic, the rune teaching course officially began. The young wizards listened attentively, as if immersed in a new ocean of knowledge. For them, if entering Hogwarts to learn magic was like opening a window to the magical world, then the ancient magic they were exposed to at this moment was undoubtedly the door to the mysterious world. Each runic character contained endless magic and wisdom, which fascinated and intoxicated them. Llewellyn's understanding of depicting magic circles became deeper and deeper, no longer limited to simple imitation. He began to comprehend the mysteries and gradually grasped its essence. It was lunchtime, and Rowling, who was hungry, was about to go to the hall to enjoy the food. But as soon as he stepped into the hall, he saw Draco's arm was wrapped in bandages. "What's going on?" Rowling hurriedly asked. After some understanding, he learned that it was in Hagrid's class that Draco was attacked for provoking magical creatures. At this moment, Rowling suddenly remembered that Harry had tried to ride the hippogriff for the first time and was recognized by it. The hippogriff took Harry across the entire Hogwarts. That scene was really thrilling. However, the always arrogant Draco thought that he had noble blood and should be able to control these magical creatures more easily than Harry, but unfortunately he became the target of the attack. Thinking of this, Rowling couldn't help but roll his eyes and sighed secretly, "This guy is really asking for trouble." After lunch, Llewellyn immersed himself in the study of runes, trying to explore the mysterious runes. However, for other young wizards, these words and symbols are as difficult to understand as the Book of Heaven. But for a wizard like Llewellyn who has been in contact with the power of nature, everything seems to be easy. Suddenly, a cry broke the silence and attracted the attention of all the young wizards. They all raised their heads and looked towards the source of the sound, the Daily Prophet in Ron Weasley's hand. It turned out that the newspaper reported that someone had found Sirius Black in Duff Town. This news was like a bombshell, quickly spreading throughout the classroom and causing a commotion. "Duff Town? That's not far from here." Hermione Granger reacted immediately, her eyes flashing with alertness and worry. The atmosphere in the classroom became tense in an instant, and everyone realized the seriousness of the situation. Harry Potter was filled with conflicting emotions at this moment. On the one hand, he had a strong sense of anticipation because he finally had the chance to face the enemy that had caused him so much pain. On the other hand, he also felt an inexplicable fear and was uneasy about the unknown danger. Will he come to Hogwarts? After all, there are many Dementors here. Someone in the crowd said worriedly. This sentence was like a knife, piercing Harry's heart. He remembered his experience with Dementors and shuddered. Who knows, even if he comes, he has already escaped from the Dementors once, who knows if he will slip away again? Another person echoed, revealing his fear of Sirius Black's ability to escape. The hall fell into silence, and everyone was thinking about what might happen next. Llewellyn didn't care after hearing this. He packed up his books and stood up and left the auditorium. He walked into the alchemy class. Alchemy benefited Llewellyn a lot. Although he had an MC tool bench, Llewellyn didn't fully understand its working principle. In the alchemy class, Llewellyn not only learned the basic knowledge of how to make magic items, engrave runes, and magic circles, but also studied the secrets of advanced alchemy. The professor constantly explained to them a truth that transcends mortal understanding: advanced alchemy is to understand the basic composition of objects, break them up and reassemble them. However, it should be noted that alchemy is not omnipotent. It cannot create something that does not exist. If you want to obtain a certain substance or ability, you must pay a corresponding price. This is the basic principle of alchemy, equivalent exchange. Nowadays, there are only a few wizards who can master this advanced alchemical technique in the magic world. Most people prefer to use simple methods to obtain the items or power they need. Only a few people who truly pursue excellence and madmen obsessed with power will spend time and energy to delve into this profound art. When the professor talked about this, Rowling couldn't help but think of Professor McGonagall's Transfiguration class. He remembered that in that class, Professor McGonagall was able to transform the inanimate podium into various animals. Although these animals had no souls, they had real forms and behaviors. Although Professor McGonagall would retract her magic, the animals would return to their original podium appearance. Thinking of this, Rowling began to wonder if Professor McGonagall was also involved in alchemy. According to Rowling's understanding of Muggle physics, the basic properties of objects can be transformed, and this ability is similar to Professor McGonagall's transfiguration. The wizarding world is too greedy. In contrast, Muggles' research in alchemy has far surpassed that of wizards. However, Rowling is still confused about the alchemy of equivalent exchange. This concept makes him feel mysterious and elusive. Rowling decided to go to Professor McGonagall and ask her whether transfiguration was related to alchemy. He came to Professor McGonagall's office door, knocked gently, then opened the door and walked in. Professor McGonagall was sitting at her desk, concentrating on reading a document. When she heard a knock on the door, she looked up and her eyes fell on Rowling, who walked into the room. "Rowling, is there anything wrong?" Professor McGonagall glanced at him and asked in a calm and gentle tone. Chapter 124, 72 Transformations of Animagus. Rowling took a deep breath, walked to the desk, and straightened his body. He looked at Professor McGonagall, his eyes flashing with curiosity and doubt. "Professor, I would like to ask you a question. Is your transfiguration a kind of alchemical technique?" Rowling asked directly, his voice revealing a thirst for knowledge. Professor McGonagall frowned slightly, with a hint of surprise on her face. She put down the documents in her hand and stared at Rowling quietly, as if thinking about how to answer this question. "Why do you ask?" Professor McGonagall asked softly, with a hint of curiosity in her eyes. Llewellyn expressed his thoughts. "Professor, when I was studying alchemy, I found that it emphasized the transformation of matter and the principle of equivalent exchange. Transfiguration seems to be able to change the properties and form of objects, which makes me think that there may be some connection between them." Professor McGonagall listened to Rowling's explanation, and a smile gradually appeared on her face. She nodded, indicating that she understood Rowling's doubts. "You are very perceptive, Rowling. Indeed, both transfiguration and alchemy involve the transformation and manipulation of matter. However, transfiguration is not entirely the same as alchemy. It is an application of magic that can change the form and properties of objects through magical power. Although we can change the form of objects, it does not mean that we are involved in the principle of equivalent exchange," Professor McGonagall explained patiently. Rowling frowned, thinking about what Professor McGonagall had said. He realized that although transfiguration and alchemy had similarities, their essences were different. So, transfiguration focuses more on the use and control of magic rather than the transformation of matter. Rowling asked, trying to sort out his thoughts. Professor McGonagall nodded. "Yes, transfiguration is an advanced magical skill that requires powerful magic and superb skills to master. It is not just a simple change of the appearance of an object, but can also give the object new functions and characteristics. But it is not the pursuit of equal exchange of materials like alchemy," Professor McGonagall said as she took out her wand and lit the candle next to her. Then the candle turned into an animal, but as the magic power on the candle disappeared, the animal turned back into a candle. Llewellyn's face showed a look of sudden realization, and he nodded slightly to show that he understood. He finally understood the difference between transfiguration and alchemy, and realized that he had confused the concepts of the two before. Changing the properties of an object is alchemy, while being unable to change the properties of an object is still transfiguration. "Very good, Rowling. If you have any other questions or wish to delve deeper into a particular area, please feel free to talk to me," Professor McGonagall said gently, her eyes full of admiration. She was surprised by Rowling's keen interest in alchemy. She smiled and said, "If you really want to learn more about alchemy, I will explain the animagus transformation technique in detail in a few days. Please be sure to listen carefully, because advanced transformation techniques may bring you new insights." Professor McGonagall has high hopes for Rowling. After all, Dumbledore once told her that Rowling is a descendant of the Gryffindor family. Every wizard from Gryffindor College has a special feeling for Godric Gryffindor. In the Transfiguration class, Professor McGonagall vividly explained various transfiguration techniques and knowledge, including living transfiguration, which only changes the appearance of an object or creature, but its essence does not change substantially. However, when Professor McGonagall mentioned animagus, Rowling became particularly focused and serious. He had a strong interest in this mysterious transfiguration and listened carefully to every detail. Animagus is not the ability to change into any animal at will. Generally speaking, each animagus can only change into a specific animal. Moreover, animagus's transformation usually cannot change into magical creatures. Although many ancient wizards have tried to change into magical creatures through animagus, unfortunately, they all failed to change back to their original form. When Professor McGonagall told these stories, her voice was full of seriousness and warning. She warned students not to try this dangerous transfiguration lightly, lest they fall into irreparable difficulties. At the same time, she also showed her animagus form, allowing students to witness this magical transformation ability with their own eyes. Rowling used the Eye of Elements to observe Professor McGonagall's animagus form. He was surprised to find that Professor McGonagall had completely turned into a lively cat. If you don't pay attention, it's hard to find that she still exudes a faint magical fluctuation. This shows that the transformation of animagus is not only a change in appearance, but also a transformation of the essence of the body. When Llewellyn saw this, he couldn't help but have a bold guess in his mind. According to Muggle research, the reason why humans are in human form and animals are born in animal form is that a key factor is the DNA gene code. Is the so-called animagus form just changing one's own gene code, or copying a new gene code, so as to change one's own form? This is a very interesting idea, and if true, then animagus transfiguration is not just a simple magical skill, but involves a change in the essence of life. Because in the animagus transformation, there is a crucial point to success, that is, in the preliminary preparation work, from the beginning to the end, you need to touch your chest with the tip of the wand every day, and chant the spell repeatedly at sunrise and sunset, Amado, Animadu, Animagus, Animagus. When you can feel the second heartbeat, it means that the animagus transformer is half successful. From this, it seems that wizards can only bear 2 genetic codes. If they want to transform into the form of a magical creature, their genetic bloodline may be too strong to restore their original appearance. In this way, perhaps only people with special abilities or special training can bear and control this powerful genetic power. Currently, there are only 7 legal animagus registered by the British Ministry of Magic. The animal that an animagus transforms into is usually the same as the patroness it casts. So far, no animagus has been found to be able to change the animal image of its transformed body accordingly when the patroness changes form. Despite this, it is extremely rare to have an animagus that can transform and cast a patroness at the same time. Wizards all know that Professor McGonagall can show 3 different forms of patroness, but her animagus only takes the form of a cat, or Professor McGonagall is hiding something. Chapter 125. The reason why the animagus is shown to be in the form of a patroness is that at the moment of the animagus's final transformation, there is no very clear and specific biological image in his mind as a reference, so the animagus's form will overlap with that of the patroness. The patroness is actually a manifestation of the soul. Generally speaking, the owner of the patroness will have the corresponding personality traits according to the animal it is. However, if one has an unwavering and powerful willpower, the situation may be different. When the transformation occurs, people who can clearly imagine a certain creature in their mind will also see their animagus form change. Even those magical creatures. However, once this change occurs, it is basically impossible to restore it to its original appearance. After all, this is just based on a mortal body, without the support of a strong bloodline, but eager to gain powerful power, and ultimately inevitably driven by power. Llewellyn thought to himself, now I have a water spirit body, which can be said to be one of the most powerful physiques in the world. However, although I can freely transform into various creatures through the form of water, these creatures always look like water. So, should I try the animagus transformation? In potions, the polyjuice potion for transfiguration requires a hair from the transfiguration subject. Hair is the embodiment of genetic code. However, this transfiguration can only occur between the same species. For example, after Hermione Granger drank the polyjuice potion containing cat hair, she became a cat person. So, if 2 species with different genes are fused together, will an orc form be produced? Moreover, can such a fusion also give humans orc-like powers? Nowadays, the most powerful magical creature in the world is undoubtedly the dragon. It seems that when I have time, I should go to the Dragon's Breath Valley to study my good neighbor, the 1000-year-old dragon. However, before going, I have to learn the apparition. With my current magic reserve, it may be difficult to perform space jumps. However, this apparition course can only be learned by wizards in the 6th and 7th grades who pay 12 galleons. You can't eat hot tofu in a hurry. You have to take it step by step. During this week, Llewellyn was completely immersed in the in-depth study of magic, and alchemy finally moved from the theoretical stage to the practical stage. However, what Llewellyn did not expect was that the best alchemical material was actually the gold galleon. These currencies made by fairies were extremely stable when the array runes were carved on their surface. Llewellyn added a simple armor spell to it, and found that this spell as a defensive magic was very useful, and the magic energy flowed smoothly on the gold galleon. Then, he tried to attach the purification spell to the gold galleon, but unexpectedly, the gold galleon exploded instantly. This shows that powerful magic requires a more powerful carrier. When Llewellyn injected magic power into the engraved magic array, the powerful magic power easily wiped out the array like lava touching ice and snow. Llewellyn's research at this time was at a bottleneck. Just as Rowling was slowly studying, the dormitory door opened. Rowling looked over and said, "Oh Neville, I'm sorry. I neglected you." "Yes, we are going to St. Mungo's Hospital this week. Let's go." Due to the Ministry of Magic's blockade of Hogwarts by Dementors, Rowling had to find other ways to leave the school. After careful consideration, he decided to go to Dumbledore's office and apply to use the Flu network to go directly to St. Mungo's Hospital. This would save time and energy, while avoiding conflict with the Dementors. After arriving at the headmaster's office, Rowling explained his purpose to Dumbledore in detail and expressed his concern for Neville's parents' illness. When he mentioned that he was going to visit Neville's parents, Dumbledore could not help but look regretful. However, he thought that Rowling had some strange magical abilities and might be able to create a miracle. "Okay, Rowling, I approve your use of the Flu network, but please allow me to arrange for Professor Snape to accompany you. As you know, Deputy Headmistress McGonagall has been very busy lately," said Dumbledore. "No problem." Rowling agreed readily, but he muttered in his heart, "Busy? It's because the Vice Principal is doing the Principal's job." Rowling understood that this was also for safety reasons. After all, Professor Snape was also an experienced and powerful wizard who could provide additional protection. Soon, Snape arrived at the door of the headmaster's office. When he received the news, Snape's face was gloomy. After all, for him, brewing potions was the most important thing, not being a nanny for two little wizards. However, he perked up when Dumbledore mentioned that Rowling might be able to help heal Neville's parents. Rowling and Professor Snape arrived at St. Mungo's Hospital via the Flu network. It was full of mystery, and the corridor was filled with the smell of herbs. At the reception desk, they met Neville's grandmother, who was anxiously waiting for their arrival. It can be seen that Neville's grandmother used to be a person who stood up straight, proud, and confident, but now her back has slowly bent down. The years have left deep marks on her face, making her look much older than her peers. Despite this, she still maintains a strong character, which can be seen from her firm eyes. After greeting each other, Neville's grandmother showed great enthusiasm. She thanked Rowling and told them that Neville's parents were in the ward upstairs. So the group went straight to the ward where Neville's parents were. As soon as he entered the room, Neville couldn't help crying. The scene in front of him made him feel heartbroken. His parents were so thin that they were almost skin and bones. Their mental state was also very bad and they looked very haggard. Mr. and Mrs. Longbottom saw Neville coming again. Although they didn't recognize him, the sense of blood closeness still made them smile with relief. But at this moment, Neville looked at his parents with a sad face, his eyes full of helplessness and sadness. Rowling came to the Longbottom couple and carefully observed their condition. According to the hospital's diagnosis, the couple would fall into endless nightmares every time they fell asleep, suffering great pain, and could only rely on drugs to temporarily relieve the symptoms. Rowling opened the Eye of Elements and carefully observed the Longbottom couple who were tortured by the Cruciatus curse. He found that not only were their souls incomplete, but even their spirits were missing. And they were also attached with the breath of black magic, which made Rowling's face become more solemn. After some careful consideration, Rowling turned to look at Professor Snape and asked in a heavy tone, "Professor, do you carry any magic recovery potion with you? The following ritual will consume a lot of magic power." In fact, Rowling still had a bottle of magic recovery potion left, but his potions master was right next to him, so there was no reason not to take advantage of it. W. Professor Snape was silent for a moment, then stared at Rowling and said lightly, "For the sake of the magic crystal ball you gave me before." As he said that, he took out a bottle of higher quality magic recovery potion from his robe. Rowling was surprised. Did he mix water into the potion he exchanged unicorn powder for with Snape last time? He looked at Snape with doubt.